Rain came down like the sky finally quit. Leon stood at the rooftop edge, hoodie soaked, phone dead, hope buried under 6 layers of sarcasm. This was supposed to be his quiet place. Think. Maybe scream. Maybe plan a dramatic dropout. The door groaned behind him. Oh no, not him. Yo, Devin sang. You always brood up here. Kinda hot. Leon turned slowly. His look could kill crops. Devin, stepbrother of 3 months. Shirt open, chest out, smirk illegal in 12 time zones. You again, Leon said. Devin leaned on the rail, too close. Don't pretend you're not happy to see me. I prefer food poisoning. You've got that traumatized main character energy. I like it. I like personal space. Ever heard of it, or were you raised in someone else's lap? Devin chuckled. Sharp tongue. But it'd be fun if you used it properly. Leon's eye twitched. You're flirting. Again. I flirt with everyone. You're the only one who makes it interesting. I am your stepbrother. We're not blood. I don't care if we were raised in separate timelines. You joined the family the moment your dad married my mom. This is weird. Making it weirder should be a felony. Devin sighed. You say that now, but in all the best stories. Finish that sentence, and I'm tossing you off the roof. Thunder rolled like the universe agreed. Leon faced the city. Rain glued his hair to his face. He could ignore Devin. He could ignore an apocalypse. Crack. Lightning split the sky. Instinct screamed too late. The bolt hit him like a god with a grudge. White swallowed everything. Pain lit every nerve. His feet left the ground. Somewhere, Devin screamed, Leon. Of course he lives, Leon thought. Plot armor loves perverts. Then nothing. Static. Silence. Not poetic darkness. Just blank. He existed without a body. No hands. No legs. No time. No comforting hum of dread. Only thoughts. So this is death. Being on hold with customer service forever. No pain. No tunnel. Just floating. Oddly peaceful if you ignore the chance he peed himself. Not that he could check. No body. No shame. Time, or something like it, passed. Did I really die to lightning? Lazy. At least give me a truck or a cursed vending machine. He tried to sigh. No lungs. Just vibes. The next thought rose up warm. I'm free. Free from Devin. No more ambush flirting. No more, we're not blood-related, over cereal. Leon would have cried if he had tear ducts. Thanks, Zeus. Or whoever. No montage. No last wishes. He died doing what he did best. Avoiding people and roasting them. Maybe this was it. An eternal quiet. Like a party where you know no one, and the music is too loud to be sad. At least it's not Devin. Unless he died too. Panic sparked. What if he gets ice-guyed with abs and elf pet names? The void twitched. Not visually, just a shift. Like the dark flinched. Something noticed him. A pull started. Not cruel. Not kind. Absolute. Hey, Leon tried to yell. Only a thought-shaped scream came out. The void shattered. White. Heat. A presence the size of a galaxy in a robe. A glowing mask. A horizon that didn't bother to exist. Stars folded like paper cranes. Ah, the being said, voice deep and oddly casual. You're the one I hit. Excuse me. You weren't supposed to die, it went on. Wrong angle. Wrong rooftop. The target was 2 buildings over. Guy was about to sacrifice his goldfish for demonic insurance. Messy. You hit me. With lightning. By accident. Technically. You uninstalled me from life like a buggy app. When you say it like that, I sound careless. You think. It lifted a radiant hand. Maybe shame. Maybe indigestion. To compensate, I'll offer what mortals crave after an untimely death. Sky. Correct. Of course. A new world, it said. Swords. Magic. Monsters. Tragic backstories. Overpowered cheat. Broken bloodline. Mysterious destiny. Depends on your attitude. And narrative karma. Great. You were the only death on your planet today. That grants you priority. Cleaner slate. Stronger start. Consider it a reroll. No school. No bills. No Devin. I'm listening. Prepare yourself, Leon. Your new life awaits. Wait, Leon said or thought. You're sending me into a murder playground with no tutorial? No starter pack. You're being reborn. Isn't that enough? You deep-fried me by mistake. Hazard pay. A long, celestial sigh. Reincarnated humans have standards now, Leon said. Forums. Tier lists. Another sigh. I'm not asking for one-punch Godslayer physique, he added. Give me a chance. A fair shot. Something small and broken. The mask tilted. Define chance. 7. My lucky number. 7 draws. Your version of gotcha. Silence. Then a glowing finger extended. Done. A circle bloomed. Intricate. Turning. 7 empty slots. A divine lottery wheel built by bored immortals. You get 7 spins, the being said. Each draw grants a trait, an item, a blessing. Or nothing. Nothing is an option. It's luck. Not a guaranteed SSR. Gotcha, hell follows me into death. Of course. The wheel hummed. Shall we begin? Leon stared like a gambler at the last machine in the casino. Leon eyed the cosmic wheel like a starving man at a buffet. 7 spins. 7 chances to avoid becoming Monster Chow. All right, he said, gathering whatever counted as focus. Spin 1. Go. The wheel blurred into color, then clicked to a stop with a soft green glow. Reward. Rare treasure. Spoon of infinite soup. Sorry, what? Leon sputtered. A useful item, the entity said, perfectly calm. Endless soup. Fantastic. I'll duel demons with bottomless chicken noodle. Second spin, the being intoned. The wheel turned again and settled on a cool blue. Reward. Uncommon treasure. Cloak of mild invisibility. Invisibility. I can work with that. Mild invisibility, the entity corrected. Only when no one is looking. Leon stared. So, invisibility that fails on contact with eyesight. Amazing. Perspective, young mortal. Again. Third spin. A tired green. Reward. Common treasure. Boots of slight comfort. Are you mocking me? No. Comfortable boots prevent blisters. Right. The apex predator of a magic world is foot pain. Spin again. Fourth spin. A blaze of violet. Reward. Legendary treasure. Orb of all elemental affinity. Leon forgot how to think for a second. Meaning, natural affinity and resistance to all elements. The being said, grudging. Fire, water, earth, wind, light, darkness, and the rest. Leon did a mental victory lap. Now, that is plot armor. You still have spins. Fifth spin. Another violet burst. Reward. Mythic treasure, dimensional hourglass. An hourglass? The being actually groaned. A pocket dimension where time runs 1,000 times slower. Nearly comparable to my realm's temporal distortions. So infinite study time. Or infinite naps. 2 more. Sixth spin. Deep silver. Reward. Rare treasure. Ring of minor regeneration. Regeneration. Minor. Cuts and bruises. Do not expect new limbs. Still beats soup, Leon said, then glanced at the spoon. Usually. Final spin. Make it count. The will sang, then chime gold. Reward. Epic treasure. Blade of convenient sharpness. Convenient. Dull while sheathed. Razor when drawn. Actually solid, Leon admitted. May your luck serve you well, the being said, sounding relieved. I'll make good use of the infinite soup, Leon promised. The mask shifted into a weary grimace. Your next life awaits, gotcha addict. Use your treasures wisely. Or not. The realm dimmed. The wheel dissolved in a glitter like confetti at a funeral. Leon floated with the smugness of a squirrel guarding nuclear acorns. Not bad, he said. Not great. Not bad. Satisfied? The entity asked. Mostly. I hope the soup is not my peak. There are worlds where that spoon would found a religion. Now I want to visit those. Focus. You will reincarnate in Valeria. Nice name. Elves? Magic? Shirtless political duels? Yes, and worse. You will arrive in the lower domain of the earthly plane. Filthy. Dangerous. Merciless. So fantasy Detroit. Worse. Your treasures will be dismissed as trinkets. You begin with nothing. No reputation. No backing. Can I pick a race? A spawn point? Maybe a cool scar? No. Harsh. You will be human. Orphaned. Dirt poor village with beasts and bandits. Classic, Leon said. Keeps expectations low. Your memories return at 7. Until then, you are a normal crying baby. Leon blanched. You want me to run the tutorial as an infant? You will live. Probably. That is the most I will do. The being added, still sulking over the lost hourglass. Fine. Let's roll. The figure unraveled into starlight. Its voice lingered. Survive, Leon. Grow strong. Climb the realms. Find the truth. Perhaps you will meet the real me. Light closed over him, wrapping him like a cosmic burrito. Power crackled. Reality folded. His soul stretched thin. Thoughts pulled through a celestial pasta maker. Then it hit him. Wait. How do I receive the treasures? Do I get chests? Are they sealed in my soul? Mailed to my crib, like magical express delivery? I need logistics. Too late. The light took him. Leon dropped toward Valeria, not screaming from fear, but from pure administrative panic. I didn't ask about delivery.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Mud sucked at the bare feet of a dirty-looking young boy, thick and clingy, like the street itself was trying to pull him down. Each step felt like tearing free from wet chains, but he didn't stop. Couldn't. Not with the shouting behind him growing louder. The streets of Grey Ridge twisted around him. Sharp stones, uneven gutters, piss pooling in the creases between cobbles. The stink was familiar. So were the alleys, the sidelong glances, the weight of running, while everyone else pretended not to see. He clutched the lump of bread tighter against his chest, misshapen, burnt, hard as bone and twice as ugly. But it was food, and right now, it was as whether the angry man, chasing him like it or not. Thief! Stop him! The shout cut through the morning noise, followed by voices, angry, stumbling after him. He didn't look back. He never looked back. That was rule 1. Looking back meant hesitation, and hesitation meant pain. Darting between 2 carts, one hand grazed the edge of a wheel, while the other stayed locked around the bread like it might vanish if he loosened his grip. A crash to his left, someone had hit a crate. He veered hard, shoulders scraping brick, then dove into a narrow alley, slipping behind a stack of reeking fish crates. The stench hit immediately, old brine and rotted guts, but he crouched anyway, breathing through clenched teeth. Stillness settled. A few seconds passed, then more. No footsteps, no shouts. Just water dripping from the eaves above and the faint creak of a loose sign somewhere down the lane. His legs trembled. His lungs burned. Every inhale ached, too tight, too sharp. But no one came. The boy slid down the wall slowly, letting the cold bricks press into his back. He pulled his knees to his chest. The bread stayed close. He didn't dare loosen his fingers. Eventually, he uncurled one hand and stared at the lump. The top was char-black. The edges cracked. It had probably been discarded before he snatched it. But it was solid. It would last. And it was his. That was enough. He bit into it. The crust scraped his gums. The inside was half stale, barely chewable. He tore apart with his teeth anyway, jaw tight, chewing slowly and stubbornly. Every swallow hurt. He didn't care. He was eating, his head tipped back against the wall, breath falling into rhythm with the soft patter of rain filtering through the alley mouth. Water ran in thin streams between the stones. His tunic clung to him like wet paper, patched, frayed, more whole than cloth. Cold seeped through the fabric, tracing down his spine like a slow hand. His ribs stuck out. His knees were scabbed. The dirt never left his skin anymore. But he was breathing. For now, that was enough. His eyes drifted shut. And then it happened. A flicker, not light, not sound. Something inside him, like a finger tapping gently against the back of his mind. He opened his eyes. Still the alley. Still the rain. Still the weight of hunger and cold. But something else was there too. A tug. Subtle. Hollow. Almost curious. He froze. The bite in his mouth stayed half-chewed. The bread, still in his lap. The sensation didn't go away. It deepened. Soft at first, like standing on a cliff and feeling the air shift before a storm. Then sharp, then pain. It hit without warning. A sudden spike through his skull, blinding and raw. His hands flew to his head as his body seized, legs kicking out, bread tumbling into the mud beside him with a dull splash. He collapsed sideways. He couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. It wasn't cold. It wasn't shock. It was memory. Everything poured in at once. Images slamming into his mind like punches. Rain on a rooftop. Devon's voice, smug and too close. A flash of white. Lightning. Then darkness. Then light. The void. A being too large to name. A voice that wasn't a voice. A wheel spinning with impossible gravity. Leon. The name crashed through him. Not a gutter rat. Not this half-starved shadow hiding behind fish crates. Leon. The boy who died. The boy who'd bargained. And won. 7 treasures. 7 absurd, ridiculous, divine prizes. A spoon. A cloak. Boots. An orb. A dimension. A ring. A blade. They came back in pieces then all at once. Not dreams. Real. His name. His self. Leon. The breath caught in his throat. Then a whisper, clearer than sound. Your treasures are sealed in a private pocket dimension tethered to your soul. He didn't remember hearing those words. He knew them. Somehow he knew. Leon forced his body to still. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just closed his eyes again and reached, not toward thought, not emotion, not memory. Toward space. And there it was. Cold. Silent. A vault inside him. No walls. No locks. Just will. His mind touched it, and the image came clearly. 7 anchors. 7 truths. 7 pieces of defiance. He chose the one he needed most. The spoon. He didn't call for it. He just reached, and it appeared. In his hand. Plain. Metal. Scratched. Almost stupid in its normalcy. Until it filled. Steam rose gently from the shallow bowl. The smell hit his nose and punched straight to his chest. Warm broth. Rich. Savory. Real. His stomach snarled so loud it hurt. He brought it to his lips and drank. The first sip broke him. It was perfect. Smooth. Creamy. Something sharp behind it. Pepper, maybe? He didn't care. He didn't stop. He drank again. And again. And when the flavor didn't fade, when the spoon quietly refilled itself, he laughed. It started as a wheeze. Then a snort. Then a full, quiet laugh that shook his shoulders and hurt his cracked ribs. It wasn't madness. It wasn't joy. It was release. He wasn't begging anymore. He wasn't crawling. He had power now. For the first time in this world, he wasn't waiting to be hurt. He was sitting in a puddle of filth with rain dripping from his hair, laughing into a spoon that defied hunger. And he felt more alive than ever. He looked down at the spoon and smiled. I suppose infinite soup isn't such a bad start, he muttered. Then softer, eyes narrowing, voice low. Let's see what I can cook up next. He leaned back against the wall, rain dripping from broken gutters above, soup warm in his hand. For the first time since waking in this world, he didn't feel like prey and fake charm. Leon didn't pause. He ran the ladle under a splash of water, slow and calm. Soup. The voice shifted tone, more teeth now. We don't want soup, Brad. We want the recipe. Another joined in, shorter, higher, cocky. Yeah, hand it over, or things get hot. Leon finally glanced up. 3 of them, scarred and armed, trying hard not to look like thugs, and failing. The shortest one sneered like it was a full-time job. Leon's gaze landed on the speaker's mouth. Cracked lips, yellow teeth, hands twitchy, cheap aggression, probably desperate. He looked back at the pot. It's water, dirt, and hope, he said. Want the ratio? The big one growled. You mocking us? Leon shrugged. No, but his hand tightened on the ladle. They tried to take it. His jaw locked. Let them. The scarred one stepped in close, breath hot and rotting. Last chance, Brad. Leon met his eyes, slow and unflinching. Go ahead, he whispered. Try it. The man lunged. Leon moved first. The pot tipped with a practice flick, sending scalding soup arcing through the air. It splashed full across the thug's arm and chest. Steam hissed. The scream tore through the alley like a lightning crack. The man stumbled back, crashing into the crate wall. His companions froze. Leon stepped forward, steam rising around him like a ghost breath. The ladle in his hand gleamed under firelight. "You think I made it this far by being helpless?" His voice didn't shake. The remaining two hesitated, looked at their writhing friend, then at Leon, and backed away without a word. No threats, no bravado, just footsteps fading into dusk, dragging agony behind them. Leon stood there until they were gone. Only then did he let his shoulders slump. His legs felt like paper. He stared at the spoon in his hand, still dripping broth. Still whole. Not a spoon. A promise. That night, he sat behind the inn, bowl in hand, sky overhead, stars flickering like they were trying not to get involved. The broth had cooled, but he sipped anyway. He didn't taste it. Didn't need to. It wasn't enough. Clean clothes. A room with a roof. Coins stashed in a floorboard. But no safety. No strength. He remembered the thug's hand reaching for him. Remembered how small it made him feel. How fast things could have gone wrong. Soup is survival. That's all. But he wanted more. He whispered aloud, "I need more." Something shifted inside. The hum of starlight beneath skin. The vault stirred. 7 treasures. Still waiting. Still his. A whisper echoed in the corner of his mind, voiceless but clear. "Climb the realms." His eyes lifted toward the east. Duskmoor's glow shimmered through the trees, distant, untouchable. For now, his grip on the spoon tightened. No more hiding, he murmured. No more waiting. The broth rippled softly. He took it as agreement. Later, in his room, moonlight laid silver stripes across the floor. Leon sat cross-legged on the bed. The infinite spoon rested beside him, warm and solid. He closed his eyes. Focus. Will it open? The vault answered instantly. A thrum in his chest. Not loud, not sharp, just there. Inside, they waited. 7. He'd only used one. Now was time. First, cloak of mild invisibility. It hovered toward him, barely shimmering. The edges blurred like heat haze. Leon reached out, and it folded neatly into his hands. No dramatic glow. No surge of magic. Just cloth. Quiet and stubborn. Mild, he muttered. The magical equivalent of lukewarm tea. Still, he slipped it on and pulled the hood down. Nothing. He turned sideways. His reflection vanished. He stepped back, reappeared. Stepped again, gone. He blinked. Invisible when no one's looking. He snorted. That's dumb. But his brain was already racing. Escape. Distraction. Fridge raids. He folded it carefully. Weird, he whispered, but workable. Next, boots of slight comfort. They looked simple, worn leather, no shine, no symbols. He slid them on. A breath left him without warning. No aches, no soreness. The floor underfoot felt like soft grass after rain. He walked a slow lap around the room. Then again, "Okay," he murmured. "These slap. Last for now." The orb of all elemental affinity. It floated forward like it was too proud to be carried. Leon reached out. Colors flickered. Red, blue, green, violet, gold. Elemental light shifting like it couldn't pick a side. He held it with both hands. "You're the one," he whispered. The real cheat code. He focused. Willed it to unlock. He tried once. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. Then at last, a faint response stirred in the silence. Not rejection, not denial, simply a delay. A quiet answer wrapped in silence. Not yet. He stared at the orb. Seriously? No flash. No hum. Just that same slow pulse. It wasn't ready. Because he wasn't. He placed it back in the vault. Lips pressed thin. Fine. Not yet didn't mean never. He had time, and he intended to earn it. Because he infinite soup to keep him alive. But it wouldn't carry him to power. Not alone. All right. Time for the big one. The dimensional hourglass. Leon took a breath. The kind you draw before opening a final exam paper that could either grant you immortality or inflict immediate emotional damage. Reaching into the vault, he felt the smooth, cold surface of something that probably came with a divine warning label. The hourglass floated into his hand, its sands swirling sideways as if to say, "Gravity? Never heard of her." There was no dramatic music, no anime glow-up, just a quiet pulse, as if the item was checking his vibe before unlocking. Narrowing his eyes, Leon muttered, "If you turn me into a time ghost, I swear I'm haunting someone." His consciousness blinked. 1 second he was in his room. The next, boom, an empty void. No walls, no furniture, no ominous whispers. Just miles of flat, glowing space and a strange, buzzing stillness. Okay, this is either a pocket dimension or Apple's new startup campus, he muttered, glancing around. Looking down, he checked himself. Feet, arms, everything intact. He was real in here, but he could sense that his body was still anchored in the physical world. Then the weirdness hit. He moved his hand. It felt normal, but also slow. Not resistant, just delayed. Like time itself was wearing Crocs. A thought slid softly but clearly into his brain. 1 second outside equals 1,000 in. No aging, no hunger, no distractions. Just you. Leon stood still, processing that revelation. Then he whispered, "I've unlocked anime, training arc mode." His mind went full gremlin. I could master swordplay, or train magic, or rewatch my entire childhood trauma in peace. Dropping into a squat, he slapped the glowing floor. Solid, tangible. Even if he wasn't fully present in physical form, the difference was nearly impossible to detect. No monsters, no taxes, just infinite productivity and zero judgment. God, this is what introverts dream of, he said, standing up again and flexing his fingers. No pain, no fatigue, still energized. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a weapon. He could grind levels undisturbed, learn spells at his own pace, meditate, or scream cry for 3 days straight, and come out looking emotionally balanced. And then, step back into the real world like, "I've changed." His grin turned full gremlin. "Okay, this is my favorite child now. Sorry, Soup." With a flicker of thought, the vault closed. The void snapped shut like a tab in incognito mode. Leon was back in his room. Steam still rose from the soup. The window creaked. Time hadn't budged an inch, and he had just gained 1,000 hours of freedom. Staring blankly at the ceiling, he whispered, "This is so broken. I love it." He sat cross-legged, spoon on one side, the hourglass floating like a smug little deity on the other. 5 treasures explored. 2 to go. And with this much time at his disposal, he could become anything. Even someone who stops getting beat up by soup thieves. "All right, Leon," he thought, rubbing his hands together. "You've got mystical artifacts stored in a soul-bounded pocket dimension. You're technically a magical orphan in a fantasy world. And this hourglass might be the greatest one yet. What's next? Try not to choke on your own greatness." Closing his eyes, he exhaled slowly and focused. With a thought, the vault opened. 2 remaining items hovered in that familiar, starlit void. He'd already tested the spoon, Soup God mode, the ultimate business and hunger code. The boots he could wear all day. The cloak that looked shabby, but proved useful under the right circumstances. The orb that didn't seem to work yet, though it seemed to acknowledge his existence. He could feel he needed something more before it would fully bond. And, of course, the dimensional hourglass, the walking cheat code. But 2 more treasures waited to be unwrapped, like high-stakes birthday presents. "Let's see what else you've got for me, Aringasus," he said, reaching first for the ring of minor regeneration. With a flicker, a thin silver ring shimmered into reality. It looked underwhelming. No flaming runes, no swirling energy, not even a dramatic pulse of crimson light. Just a ring, plain, functional, and vaguely magical. Leon frowned. "You better not be just jewelry." Still, he slipped it onto his finger and instantly flinched. A warm wave flowed across his skin like stepping into a hot bath. A faint glow shimmered across his arms and chest before vanishing. His old bruises, knees from running, shoulders from that fall near the barrels, faded in seconds. Leon blinked, then blinked again, then looked at his hand like it had just asked him a prom. "Okay, you win. You're staying." Flexing his fingers, he admired how natural it felt, as if the ring had always been there. A healing ring that works on thought. I'm never taking this off. Ever. I'm marrying this ring. We're dating now. With his confidence fully recharged and his joints no longer hating him, Leon turned to the final treasure. The blade of convenient sharpness. It appeared in a quiet flash, long, sleek, and deadly elegant. A matte black blade sheathed in matching darkness, with a polished silver handle that looked like it belonged in a noble's collection, not in the hands of a half-starved soup vendor. Leon reached for it. It dropped like a comet. Clang. The sound echoed through the floorboards as the sword hit with a bone-jarring thud, cracking the wood beneath. Leon stared, then tried to lift it. Nothing. He gave it another tug. Still nothing. "What the hell are you, Excalibur's angry cousin?" he hissed, using both hands and all the might his noodle arms could muster. Still nothing. He just sat there, sheathed, silent, and heavy as sin. Then he felt it. A presence. Like the sword was watching him. Not literally, but spiritually. His chest tightened. A cold sweat slid down his back. The air around the blade warped slightly, as if something ancient and violent was barely tolerating his existence. Leon let go like it had grown teeth. "Okay, that one was scary." Noted, he muttered, backing away like the sword might suddenly leap up and yell boo. He sat at the edge of the bed, wiping his palms on his trousers. "So, we've got an emo sword that hates me, a healing ring that loves me, and a soup spoon that wants to feed the world." He exhaled. This world was mad. But for the first time, he didn't feel powerless in it. A little unhinged? Maybe, but not powerless. Leon glanced at the orb still floating in the air, silent, stubborn, and radiating untouchable potential. If it wasn't ready to play nice, then fine. "Back into the vault you go," he muttered, not expecting it to work. He reached out, not physically, but through that inner thread, the strange storage connection the cosmic entity said was tied to his soul. A flicker of will, a pulse of intent. The orb shimmered, then vanished in a flicker of stardust, pulled back into the dimensional vault like it had been yanked through a cosmic USB port. Leon froze, then broke into a grin so wide it hurt. Wait. So I could just store stuff? Instantly? In storage connected to my soul. He turned to the cloak, boots, and ring, his hands practically vibrating. This is an inventory system, a literal cheat menu. He laughed under his breath. I'm a walking shonen protagonist. For the first time in this world, he felt equipped, and the game had officially begun. The moon hung like a judgmental coin in the sky, silver, cold, and silently watching. Leon sat cross-legged on the worn wooden floor of his rented-in room, treasures arrayed around him like a broke dragon with weird taste. The cloak of mild invisibility was folded neatly beside the bed. The orb of all-elemental affinity pulsed with muted energy, while the sealed blade of convenient sharpness rested nearby, radiating silent disdain. The boots of slight comfort remained snug on his feet, and the ring of minor regeneration worked quietly, mending faint bruises and cuts without complaint. The rest? Dead weight. For now, anyway. All right, let's see if this soul inventory hack works again, he muttered. He reached inward, flexing that strange metaphysical muscle he'd only recently learned to control. Part instinct, part willpower, part please don't explode. One by one, the unused treasures shimmered and vanished into his vault. The cloak, the orb, the blade. Even sealed, the sword resisted slightly, vibrating with a presence that didn't appreciate being shelved like some common tool. All gone, neatly filed in whatever IKEA shelving system his soul had built. Leon grinned. Inventory management? Actual RPG energy. This is peak reincarnation. He had 4 silver coins to his name and a streak of confidence in his blood. After soup sales and surviving muggings, it felt earned. And now, it was time to get himself a real weapon. When he could actually lift, unlike that moody anime sword. Grey Ridge Market at night was quieter, but no less sketchy. The shouting drunks were gone, replaced by silent watchers hidden behind crates and corners. Leon moved with intent, hood up, boots whispering against cracked stone. He passed rusted barrels, mangy dogs sleeping near gutter streams, and meat carts selling cuts of meat he didn't trust even with the ring of regeneration. Eventually, he reached a squat stone building with a crooked iron anvil sign swinging overhead. Forge and Flame, the only blacksmith in town. As he stepped inside, the heavy scent of burnt charcoal, oil, and metal slapped him across the face. The glow of the forge lit up the cluttered interior with warm, flickering hues. Behind a scarred wooden counter stood an old man with a tattered leather apron and permanent soot smudged into his beard. The blacksmith looked up and immediately narrowed his eyes. Leon ignored the scrutiny and strolled in like he belonged there, hands clasped behind his back like a noble's bored child on a museum tour. "You lost, boy," the smith grunted. Leon arched a brow. "No, I'm shopping." A pause, then a rough snort. "That right? Little early for sword dreams." Leon didn't answer. He bypassed the racks of heavy swords and axes, stuff he couldn't use even with two hands, and headed toward the back, where a smaller rack of daggers glinted faintly in the forge light. The smith started to walk over, grumbling, until Leon flicked a silver coin into the air. Clink. "I'm not broke," Leon said smoothly. "Just efficient." That changed the air. The smith took a longer look. Clean clothes. Hair strangely white for his age. Silver-white eyes with a gleam that didn't match the dirt town orphan profile. He muttered, "You're not from around here." Leon smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm a noble on vacation for my tragic backstory." The smith stiffened up a bit. The smith didn't know if it was a joke. Leon didn't clarify. Instead, he pointed at a pair of twin daggers on the top rack. Simple hilts. Steel blades, no ornament. Balanced. Functional. These. How much? 10 silver. The smith replied without blinking. Leon coughed. "You say that like it's not a crime. Good steel costs." "Sure, but this..." Leon squinted at the blade. "Looks like something a goblin would sell after losing a fight." The man's brow twitched. "You've got a sharp tongue for someone with short arms." "I compensate with long grudges," Leon said sweetly. "I've seen soup ladles more intimidating. Forged with mountain-hardened iron, quenched in bristleback oil, balanced by hand. So are ceremonial spoons in the capital. 3-day tempering process. Still looks like it would lose to a loaf of bread. Can gut a boar in one strike." Leon tilted his head. "So can I, if the boar's already dead and emotionally unprepared." The smith exhaled hard through his nose. "You want quality, you pay for it." Leon picked up one dagger, tested the weight. It fell right. His fingers adjusted around the hilt naturally. He didn't show that. No enchantments. No runes. Not even a fake brand name. 10 silver is delusional. The smith folded his arms. "Then go find worse steel. You're the only blacksmith in this place. You're basically a monopoly. Doesn't mean you get a cosplay as a noble." 8 silver. 3. He choked. "That won't even cover the material cost." "Then stop pricing it like you're funding a kingdom." 6. Final offer. Leon flipped a coin, watching it spin. 3. And I'll spare you from the rumor that your shop sells bread killers. A long, hard stare followed. Leon didn't blink. 3 silver, the smith muttered, rubbing his temples. "And if you break him, I complain professionally. I don't cry." He dropped the coins into the man's hand and holstered the daggers on either side of his belt. The smith muttered as Leon left. "Kid like that's either cursed, possessed, or dangerously clever." Leon called back, or all three. Back at the inn, Leon quietly entered his dimly lit room. He turned the old brass key in the lock until he heard a reassuring click, then slid the deadbolt with a deliberate motion, as if warding off an imaginary assault. Click, clack, slide, lock, chair under the knob. He didn't bother pretending to sleep. Instead, he reached into his soul inventory. The dimensional hourglass pulsed into his hands with familiar starlight. "All right," he muttered. "Time to stop being a soup tycoon. Time to get sharp." He placed the hourglass on the floor and twisted the top. Reality blinked. And just like that, he was inside. The time dimension unfurled before him, stretching into an expanse of endless gray, a realm without boundaries. It was devoid of life, sound, or movement, as if the world had paused in an eternal stillness. his personal training ground. Leon drew the twin daggers. Their weight settled evenly in his grip. He looked at his own hands, thin, small, not weak, but not enough. Not yet. He remembered the thug's stink, the way fear had crawled up his back. He had survived that day because of quick thinking and the sheer stubbornness not to act afraid. Luck had helped too. "I'm not doing that again," he whispered. "No more trembling. No more hoping. No more leaving it to chance." He dropped into a stance. Awkward. Half remembered from anime and street scraps. But it was a start. His shoulders burned. His arms ached after 5 swings. But he didn't stop. Not once. "I've got all the time in the world," he whispered. "And I'm done being scared." In the hush of a realm that knew no clocks, no pity, no audience, Leon moved again and again. Cutting, stepping, falling, rising, and slowly, inch by inch, the fear was carved away. Author's note: drop a comment if you enjoyed. It seriously fuels my soul and the story's momentum. Love. Time, as it turned out, wasn't just strange in the vault. It was silent. Leon stepped through the veil of reality into the gray, endless expanse of the dimensional hourglass. The world outside would tick forward 3 hours. In here, for months and 3 days. More than 100 days of nothing but himself, the floor, and a pair of steel blades that didn't care how tired he felt. There were no targets, no dummy to stab, no glowing XP bar or dramatic transformation scene. Just Leon, alone, moving, and the silence. At first, he flailed. Clumsy strikes, awkward footwork. No opponent to parry. No real feedback. Just the echo of his own breath and the chaotic rhythm of his uncertainty. Am I improving? Is this even working? Doubt crept in like mold. Some days, he trained with focus. Other days, he argued with the void. He lost track of time inside time. No injuries. No soreness. No way to measure growth. Only motion. But slowly, gradually, something began to shift. His footwork grew tighter. His balance steadier. He no longer swung wild. He cut. He no longer stumbled after pivots. He flowed. He couldn't see change, but he could feel it. Each time he stepped, he knew where his weight was. Each turn of the blade, he felt control. Instinct layered itself over repetition. Muscle memory born not from brute strength, but from obsession. The vault didn't test his body. It tested his will. And somehow he'd passed. When he blinked back into the real world, it was like surfacing from a long, quiet dream. 3 hours. His room was the same. The soup still faintly steamed. The floor still creaked. Leon stood still, letting the silence settle around him. No new muscles. No glow-up. Still a skinny 7-year-old. But when he moved, just a small pivot, a shift in stance, he felt it. Control. Precision. Confidence. Not the kind you shouted about. The kind you carried. He dropped onto the bed and passed out cold, mind exhausted in ways his body couldn't understand. The sun was climbing when Leon finally stirred. He stretched, blinked blearily, then let a slow grin creep across his face. Last night, just before collapsing, he'd tested something on instinct. The daggers? They'd slipped back into his soul inventory like they belonged there. Seamless. Clean. His cheat menu was officially working overtime. "I love this world," he muttered, rolling off the bed with a stretch. He washed up, threw on his gear, slung the soup pot over his back like it was sacred cargo, and stepped outside. Same streets, same stalls, same world. But this time, he moved like he had options. The soup stall was booming. Again, Grey Ridge's finest source of infinite warmth had drawn its usual line. Ragged workers, exhausted mothers, scrawny kids clinging to coins like lifelines. The scent of savory broth wrapped around the square like a safety net. Leon worked fast. Ladle, bowl, coin, nod, repeat. This was his routine now. It wasn't glamorous, but it was working until the screaming started. A single, piercing shriek tore across the street. High-pitched and wrong, the kind of sound that made you freeze before your brain caught up. Then came the shouting. Then the stampede. People scattered like someone had pulled a fire alarm on reality. Market stalls flipped. Baskets flew. A wheel of cheese went rogue and took out a child's leg. Leon blinked, bowl still in hand. What the hell? Then he saw it. A goblin. Pale green, short, snarling. Filthy blade in one hand. Blood on the other. Behind it more. Dozens. Flooding in from the cracked southern barricade. Shrieking with joy and murder in their eyes. The guards? Nowhere. The vendors? Running. A woman tripped in front of his stall, clutching her bleeding arm. My son still, she didn't finish. A goblin lunged from behind and dragged her down, blade flashing. Leon flinched as her scream was cut short. Another goblin laughed, wet and broken like a choking crow, and started toward the next closest human, a man trying to protect his stall with a broomstick. It didn't work. Leon stepped back, eyes wide, ladle gripped like it could somehow help. No. Usually during monster attacks, he was tucked away, sewers, alleys, places too forgotten to bother raiding. But now, he was here, in the open, on the main street, and he'd drawn attention. One of the goblins paused mid-sprint, sniffed, its red eyes locked on a Leon. Not the stall, not the soup. Him. Leon's stomach twisted. The goblin hissed and charged. The goblin charged, snarling, low, fast. People screamed around him. Stalls toppled. Blood painted the cobbles. But Leon didn't move. He didn't panic. Instead, a grin broke across his face, tight, sharp, electric. Finally, let's see if I'm all talk or just trauma with knives. He reached inward with practiced ease. Fwhip! Twin daggers shimmered into his hands, pulled clean from the soul vault like extensions of his will. Cold steel. Familiar weight. No hesitation. The red ring of minor regeneration pulsed on his finger, warm and steady, like a promise. Minor injuries? Covered. Major ones? Don't get hit. Perfect system. His feet shifted into stance. I've been waiting 4 months and 3 days for this, Leon muttered, eyes locked on the goblin. Let's dance, sewer gremlin. The goblin lunged, blade first, shrieking. Clang. Leon sidestepped, blade scraping past his shoulder. Fast, but not trained. Just rage and instinct. I can work with that. He ducked under the backswing, whoosh, and rolled to the side, coming up with a jab at the goblin's ribs. Thunk. The dagger connected, but shallow. Not enough. Damn. No real power behind it. 7-year-old arms aren't built for kill shots. The goblin shrieked and spun, slashing wide. Leon twisted away, fluid, tight, deliberate. All reflex. Buddy, he said breathlessly. We're going to have to try harder than. Clang. The goblin's blade clipped his forearm. Just a nick. The ring flared warm. Wound gone in seconds. That, Leon finished, grin still intact. God, I love insurance. Another overhead slash. Wild. Desperate. Leon danced sideways, SCRTCH, boots sliding on stone. He countered, low and clean, blade sweeping beneath the goblin's arm. Schlick. Blood sprayed. The goblin reeled back, screeching. Leon stepped with it. Tight. Controlled. I'm not running. Not today. See? This is why you don't rush the boss fight without reading the patch notes. The goblin snarled, limping, panicked now. It lunged again. Leon pivoted, SKRRT, let it pass. He turned. Fast. One dagger to the back of the knee. CRK. The second to the neck. SHHK. The goblin froze. Twitched. Dropped with a thud. Leon stood over the body, breath light. Not from fatigue. From clarity. He looked at the blood dripping from his blade. I can do this. I'm not useless. Not anymore. He exhaled. Okay. Training montage? Worth it. Another shriek echoed from up the street. Leon's head snapped toward the sound. Another goblin, charging. He didn't hesitate. Daggers twirled in his hands as he stepped forward, eyes locked. Let's make this one cleaner. No panic. No luck. Just control. I'm not the prey anymore. And just like that, he was moving again. Leon didn't wait. Another goblin was sprinting his way. Drool hanging from its teeth, cleaver raised, murder in its eyes. Leon twirled his daggers, stepping forward to meet it head-on. He thought, eyes gleaming. I trained for this. Time to carve it into muscle memory. Moved, but the brute moved faster. It was on him in an instant. Clang! Leon blocked just in time, steel shrieking as sword met dagger. The brute snarled, yellow teeth snapping close. No time, no space, no help. He ducked under a wild swing, whoosh, and countered with a slash to the ribs. SHNK. The blade hit, but shallow. The brute grunted and barely flinched. What? No reaction. Leon kicked back, panting. The brute followed, relentless. Heavy swings, precise in their brutality. Who taught you to fight? Leon gasped. A haunted anvil. The brute didn't answer. Just attacked. Clang. SHHK. Clang. Leon dodged left, rolled right, slashed, hit, barely drew blood. His skin's thicker, slower but stronger. This thing's a wall. And all the while, behind the brute, the wand goblin stood untouched, magic crackling between its fingers. Watching, smiling. Leon realized then, this isn't a raid. It's a hit squad. And he was the target. The brute swung with murder in its eyes. He noticed if dodged, he would hit the fireball, so he had no choice but to take the attack head-on. Leon raised both daggers to block Clang. It felt like getting hit by a falling building. His arm screamed, his vision blurred, and then, wham! The sheer force blasted him backward. He crashed into a wooden cart, the impact splintering crates and knocking the wind out of him. His spine lit up with pain. For a split second, everything was just stars and ringing ears. That sucked, he thought, blinking rapidly. But then, the warm pulse from the red rings surged through his hand, threading into his limbs like a lifeline. Pain dulled. Bruises faded. Clarity snapped back into place. Leon sucked in a breath and pushed himself up. Right. No time to die dramatically. The brute came again, sword raised, grinning wide like it could taste the kill. But Leon wasn't going to play meat shield again. He dodged left, barely a breath away from being split in half, then pivoted around its flank. I can't outpower it. I can't outrun fireballs. So, surgical precision it is. He didn't bother slashing its thick arms or chest. He'd already seen his blades barely scratch. Instead, he dropped low, slipping under its swing, whoosh, and struck at the joint behind its knee. SHHK. The goblin roared in pain, stumbling. Its leg buckled. Perfect. Leon moved fast. Before it could recover, he leapt, clinging to its back like a furious backpack. The brute thrashed, trying to shake him off, but he held tight. Lights out, jackass, he hissed. SHHKT. SHHKT. Both daggers plunged into its eyes, deep, clean, final. The goblin convulsed, then collapsed with a groan, twitching once before falling still. Thud! Leon dropped beside it, panting, blade slick with black blood. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just looked down at the corpse and thought, I can kill monsters. Let's see how magic tastes. Leon's knees trembled slightly as he stood, heart pounding in the silence that followed the brute's death. He barely had a second to process it before his gaze snapped back to the real thorn in his side. That smug little bastard with a wand. The magic goblin stood at the far end of the street, arcane energy swirling around its clawed hand like it thought it was the final boss of some underground dungeon. Sparks crackled along its fingertips. Its lips curled in a sneer. Red eyes locked with his. Leon raised his blades, bloodied but firm. Oh, I'm going to turn you into a green smear on the cobblestone. He took a step forward. Then the sky screamed. Kurtzak. A flash of light. A sharp sound like reality tearing. And then, thwunk. A spear. No, a damn lightning spear. Came out of nowhere, trailing arcs of energy as it pierced clean through the goblin's chest. The spell on its fingertips fizzled out mid-cast. It twitched once, then slumped to the ground, dead before it hit the dirt. Leon froze mid-step, mouth slightly open. What? The body dropped with a wet thud, and there it was, a luxurious spear, still impaled in the corpse, humming faintly with residual lightning. Elegant gold trimming, polished wood, runic engravings glowing like cooling embers. Lightning still crawled along its haft. Leon blinked at it. Okay, who just stole my revenge kill with a divine javelin from Zeus's closet? He turned instinctively, scanning the direction the spear had come from, pulse still racing. That wasn't goblin work. And whoever threw that wasn't normal. The crackle of fading lightning gave way to silence. Leon stood still, eyes narrowed, blood dripping steadily from both blades. Then came a sound. Clop, 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 hooves. He turned sharply. Beyond the smoke and ruin market, a single figure rode hard through the broken southern gate. A rider, silver armor. She didn't slow. The horse galloped through wreckage and corpses with frightening grace, steel hooves cutting a clean path through the chaos. She pulled the reins only when she reached the center of the street, just a few paces from where Leon stood beside the goblin brute's corpse. The mount reared slightly before coming to a stop. Leon didn't move. His knives were still in hand. His stance, not aggressive but far from trusting. The woman dismounted in one swift motion. Her purple hair spilled free from beneath her helm. Eyes the same hue, sharp, intelligent, searching. She took in the scene quickly. The dead goblin mage, still impaled on the lightning spear. The downed goblin warrior, its hulking body limp beside shattered crates. Then her gaze landed on Leon. A pale boy, white-haired and silver-eyed, his clothes torn and bloodied. His arms bore faint scratches, his eyes calm but alert. Cautious. She frowned. Not harshly, thoughtfully. You killed that. Leon didn't glance at the corpse. He simply gave her a flat look and replied, unless someone else carved out its kneecaps and gouged its eyes in the last 10 seconds, yes. A beat of silence. Her expression didn't change, but something in the tension around her mouth shifted. A flicker. Leon didn't drop his guard. He didn't know who she was, what that insignia on her armor meant, or why someone like her would arrive after the fight. But he knew enough to keep his distance, and he could feel it in her posture too. She was strong, trained, and for the first time in this world, he wasn't sure whether he was being evaluated or judged. Either way, he didn't blink. She had armor. He had blood. Let her draw her own conclusions. The quiet after carnage was never peace. It was just the world catching its breath. Leon stood surrounded by cooling bodies and overturned stalls, the twin daggers still dripping in his hands. His breathing had evened out, but his stance hadn't relaxed. Not yet, because in front of him, a woman sat astride a horse, a figure as out of place in Grey Ridge as a jewel in a dung heap. She'd arrived alone. No fanfare, no guards, just hoofbeats and silver armor flashing beneath a ruined sky. Her violet hair trailed behind her like a war banner, and the insignia on her breastplate, sword, shield, and eye, meant nothing to Leon, but it looked important. And she'd looked at him like he was the strangest thing here. She dismounted in a smooth motion, her gaze already scanning the scene with a general's precision. Her eyes, sharp, amethyst, and utterly unreadable, fell on him, blood-stained, tattered, and very much armed. You, she said, her voice a command disguised as a word. Name. Leon tilted his head, still catching his breath. Only fair if you go first. A pause. Then, calmly, without blinking, Seraphine Vale, Knight Commander of Duskmoor. Leon blinked. Well, that's unexpected. She didn't react to the tone. Not even a twitch. You were fighting? Defending myself. Looked like nobody else was going to. You're young. Noticed that, too. You killed that, she asked, nodding toward the goblin brute crumpled in a pool of its own blood, twin stab wounds where its eyes used to be. Leon offered a small shrug. It tried to kill me. I stopped it first. Before she could speak again, the air shifted. Distant hoofbeats. Boots on cobblestone. Orders barked. Steel drawn. The cavalry arrived, late, loud, and very much ready for a fight that was already over. A column of armored soldiers thundered in from the southern road, some mounted, others on foot, their banners fluttering in the wind. Spears, shields, cloaks of Duskmoor gray. They came to a halt behind her, surrounding the scene in a wall of polished steel and wary eyes. Leon's grip on his daggers didn't tighten, but didn't loosen either. One of the soldiers approached. Commander Vale, we came as soon as. Late, she said without turning. The man fell silent. Seraphine kept her gaze on Leon. You're not from Grey Ridge. No. Then why are you here? Selling soup. Sounds stupid, but it's the truth. Her eyes flicked to the ring on his finger, then the daggers, then back to his silver eyes. You're coming with us. He raised a brow. Do I get a choice? Not for now. He scanned the crowd of armed soldiers and sighed. Fine, but I'm keeping my things, and I don't like people touching my stuff. Understood. With that, she turned on her heel, heading back toward her steed. Leon fell in a step beside her, bloody daggers sheathed but still visible, tension trailing him like a second shadow. Behind them, soldiers whispered. A kid, covered in blood, standing over corpses, smirking at their commander like it was just another Tuesday. Leon didn't know where this was going, but it smelled like complications. The shop was half collapsed, walls cracked, and windows shattered. It was the quietest place left standing near the market. Charred wood and broken shelves framed the room like a war exhibit. A single chair had survived. Commander Seraphine Vale sat in it like it was a throne. Leon stood before her, still in blood-stained clothes, his daggers now sheathed but visible at his waist. He didn't fidget. He didn't shift. He just stood, like he had nothing to prove but everything to hide. A few soldiers lingered near the entrance, but none spoke. The air was thick with tension, the aftermath of violence still lingering in every breath. Seraphine studied him from behind steepled fingers. You have a look of someone who should be dead. Leon shrugged. I've had worse odds. Somehow still standing. Where did you learn to fight like that? Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. He cocked his head. Trial and error. More error than trial, probably. She leaned back slightly. Fine. Where did you learn it, then? In a place where time felt like it stopped. Just me, my knives, and the need to keep going. She didn't blink. Sarcasm won't help you here. It's not. It's just how I explain things that shouldn't make sense. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're deflecting. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just used to not being believed. Seraphine paused, then gestured subtly. One of the soldiers stepped forward and placed Leon's retrieved soup pot gently on the floor beside him. Unharmed. Leon glanced at it, then back at her. Nice to see it's still intact. Thanks. I want the truth, she said. Not stories. Not charm. You were fighting with precision. Timing. Technique. That doesn't come from hunger or fear. His gaze sharpened slightly. You're not wrong. But hunger teaches fast. Pain teaches faster. Who are you, Leon? A survivor. Nothing more right now. She tilted her head. You're not normal. Heard that before. Might even be true. I'm not complimenting you. I didn't think you were. Silence stretched. Outside, the sounds of soldiers barking orders and wounded groaning filtered through the broken walls. Finally, she asked, How old are you? Leon raised an eyebrow. Physically or emotionally? Pick the one less sarcastic. 7, that was the honest one. She didn't flinch, but her expression shifted, just a fraction. 7, and standing on a pile of corpses. He met her gaze. I didn't choose that. I just handled it. Another pause. Then she rose, the chair creaking beneath her. You'll come with us to Duskmore, she said. For your protection, and ours. Leon's eyes flicked to the soldiers at the door, then back to her. Then I'll have to wonder what a 7-year-old with 2 knives and a level 2 dead goblin warrior at his feet is trying to hide. Leon smiled thinly. You'll find I'm surprisingly boring once you get to know me. We haven't even started. She stepped past him toward the door, soldiers falling into motion like parts of a machine. Leon sighed, picking up his soup pot. Let's hope this isn't the part where everything goes downhill. He followed her out into the ruined sunlight. The world was watching him now, and he knew it. But for once, he didn't feel like running. About half an hour later, the fires were out. The bodies were piled. The screams had gone quiet, leaving only the stink of blood and burned wood to linger in the air. Grey Ridge was used to pain, but even it had never looked this hollow. Leon stood at the edge of the ruined square, soup pot strapped to his back, boots dusty and eyes distant. He'd stayed silent during the aftermath, watching the soldiers clean up with ruthless efficiency. No one approached him, not after what they'd seen him do. That was fine. He didn't want company. He wanted answers. And instead, he got a horse. Seraphine had been giving orders nonstop since the fight ended, her voice sharp and surgical. But now, she sat astride her white-gray stallion, her violet hair pulled back and her armor still gleaming with blood spatter. She looked down at him like someone weighing a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "You're riding with me," she said simply. Leon squinted up at the horse, then back at her. "Not a fan of horses. I'd rather not fall off. You're 7. You'll bounce." "That's not as comforting as you think it is." Seraphine extended a hand. He hesitated, then sighed, slung his pot tighter, and grabbed it. She hauled him up with ease, placing him behind her on the saddle. The soldiers nearby didn't comment, but a few exchanged looks. A small boy with white hair and tired eyes, climbing onto the commander's horse like he belonged there? It didn't make sense. Leon leaned slightly to one side, adjusting his grip so he didn't look like he was clinging for dear life, even though he was. "So, does this make me an assistant or a prisoner?" Seraphine's voice was unreadable. "That depends. How good are you at surviving paperwork?" Leon groaned. "I'd rather take my chances with goblins again." She spurred the horse forward, and the rest of the soldiers fell into formation behind them. As they left the smoke and blood of Grey Ridge behind, Leon glanced over his shoulder, just once. That cursed town had been the start of his new life, and now it was behind him. Ahead, Duskmore, a real city, a real commander, and very, very real complications. He tightened his grip around the saddle. Duskmore didn't smell like rot. That alone made Leon suspicious. It was bigger than Grey Ridge by far. Wide stone streets, watchtowers with banners that didn't look like they'd been dipped in regret, and people who walked like they weren't constantly scanning for alley stabbings. He rode behind Seraphine, hands loosely gripping the saddle, eyes darting everywhere. Guards at the gate had saluted the moment she came into view. No hesitation. No questioning the kid clinging to her back. Just respect. Deference. Even the common folk paused to bow or step aside. Yeah, she wasn't just some commander. She was the commander. Leon leaned slightly. "You get this treatment everywhere. Or is this just a Duskmore please don't kill us thing?" Seraphine didn't answer. She didn't have to. The city spoke for her. They passed through a gate flanked by stone lions. Actual lions, carved with such precision Leon half expected them to blink. The buildings here were cleaner, older, prideful without shouting. And then came the mansion, or maybe fortress. The commander's estate sat against the northern cliff wall, part manor, part military outpost. Thick iron gates, a stone path lined with trimmed hedges, and archers positioned discreetly on the second level. Subtle, Leon thought. Nothing says welcome like rooftop snipers. They dismounted in the courtyard. Seraphine handed the reins off without a word. Leon hopped down, landing lightly on his boots. A pair of maids approached. Clean uniforms. Nervous smiles. "Sir," one said, bowing slightly to Leon. "The commander has instructed us to prepare a bath and clothing." He raised an eyebrow. "Wow. First soup, now spa day. I'm living the dream." They didn't get the joke, but they bowed again and led him inside. The bath was large enough to drown a conspiracy in. Steam curled like ghosts over the surface, and the scent, lavender and something expensive, hit Leon like a luxurious ambush. He took his time scrubbing off blood, dirt, and goblin remnants. It felt less like cleaning and more like deleting a save file. When he finally stepped out, wrapped in a towel, the maids were waiting with a folded set of clothes. Soft fabric, finely made, nothing flashy. He changed quickly. The fabric hugged his frame without suffocating it, and the mirror... Oh, one of the maids gasped. Another actually dropped the towel she'd been holding. "His hair is so white. Look at those eyes. Like moonlight. He's adorable. Like a doll." Leon blinked. He hadn't even styled it. He looked at himself. Pale white hair, silver eyes, fresh skin. He looked like an angel. Or at least a really judgmental elf child. Great, he thought. From goblin slayer to walking portrait. At this rate, I'll be getting kidnapped by nobles in no time. A polite knock on the wooden frame interrupted the chaos. "You've been summoned to the commander's chamber," one maid said. Leon sighed. Yeah. Time to find out whether I'm getting thanked, arrested, or drafted." He followed the maid through the stone halls of the mansion, the clicks of his soft shoes barely echoing as he was led to the room of the woman who might very well change everything. The Knight Commander's chamber wasn't extravagant, but it wasn't lacking either. Everything about it was purpose-driven. A large window overlooked the northern wall, casting golden light across shelves lined with books and scrolls. Maps were pinned to the walls, some marked with pins and scribbled notes. A rack of weapons stood in one corner, pristine and untouched. A wide desk dominated the center of the room, papers stacked in controlled chaos. Seraphine stood behind it, still in partial armor, her sword leaning against the wall beside her. Leon stepped in, and the door clicked shut behind him. She didn't waste time. "You're talented," she said, tone sharp as steel. "I won't pretend you're not, which is why I can't let you walk away." Leon raised an eyebrow. "What happened to thanks for saving your border town, kid, in a fruit basket?" She didn't smile. "I want you to join Duskmore's standing army." He blinked. "Straight to recruitment, huh? No dinner first. 7 years old or not. You fought like someone who's already survived war. And survived well." She walked around the desk and stood in front of him, arms. "You wouldn't just join the rank directly. You would be trained for a few years before that, as your body was weak as a twig. You'd start with a basic rank, but be given fast-track access to training, gear, and most importantly, resources. 10 silver coins per week. Personal quarters. Training partners. Food. Protection. And when you're ready..." She motioned to a scroll on her desk, an intricate seal stamped at the top. "You'll be guided into your class awakening." Leon's brow furrowed. Seraphine explained, calm and methodical. "There are dungeons across this continent, awakening dungeons. Each person, when they come of age or prove capable, is permitted to enter one. If you clear it, your soul responds, you gain a class. Not just a title, a path, power, mana, skills, the ability to grow." He stayed quiet. "It's the only way to use mana," she continued. "Without it, you'll remain mundane. Clever, yes, but limited. And in this world, the limited die first." Leon leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "That's a hell of a sales pitch. You rehearsed that?" She didn't answer. He let the silence hang for a beat, then said plainly, "I appreciate the offer. Sincerely." "But," she prompted, "but I'm not interested in pledging loyalty, or swearing oaths, or stamping my forehead with property of Duskmore." She raised an eyebrow just slightly. Leon smiled, sharp and unapologetic. "I'll join as a mercenary. Contracted, not conscripted. You call, I answer, when it benefits us both." "You want the perks without the chain," she said. "I want freedom," Leon replied. "And options." The tension in the room shifted. Not anger, just reassessment. She studied him again. This boy, this child, white hair, silver eyes, more experience in his posture than someone twice his age. Seraphine didn't push back. Not yet. Instead, she returned her desk, fingers tapping the wood lightly. "Mercenary," she repeated. "That has complications." "So, does conscripting a child who just wants to survive," Leon replied. Her eyes met his again. No heat, just understanding layered in steel. "I'll consider it," she said. "Good," he said, turning toward the door. "Let me know before you put my name on any uniforms." 3 days passed. 3 entire days of what Leon could only describe as royal treatment, or at least what he imagined it to be. Warm meals 3 times a day, fresh clothes, a soft bed that didn't smell like mildew and desperation. Most people would have considered it heaven. Leon? He considered it suspicious. He wasn't stupid. Generosity like this always came with strings, if not ropes. Still, he wasn't above enjoying it, especially the food. On the second day, he'd actually paused mid-bite and murmured, "Is this truffle oil?" before immediately slapping himself for knowing what truffle oil was. But he didn't let the comfort lull him. Not completely. He trained. Every morning, before breakfast, he woke early and drilled. Lunges, dagger drills, footwork routines across the narrow confines of his room. He pushed himself harder than ever, not just for technique this time, but for strength. Speed and agility had saved his life during the goblin attack. But strength? That was the difference between surviving and winning. No hourglass this time. He didn't dare risk it. He didn't know how closely they were watching. Seraphine might have given him space, but she wasn't the type to let a potential threat go unobserved. And the dimensional hourglass glowed like a cursed artifact begging to be snitched on. So he kept things simple. Grit, sweat, muscle ache, progress. By the fourth morning, his legs no longer shook during lunges. His grip had calloused. His arms no longer trembled after long routines. He was still small, still 7, but he didn't feel fragile anymore. It was just after dawn on the fourth day when a knock came. Leon opened the door to find the same stiff-backed soldier from before. "The commander will see you," he said. Leon rolled his shoulders, adjusted the daggers at his waist, and nodded. Back to the lioness in silver. Time to see what she wanted this time. The hallways of the estate were quiet, polished, and unnaturally clean, like even dust had been ordered to stand at attention. Leon walked them in silence, boots tapping lightly against stone, guided by the same guard who seemed to have no hobbies outside, standing stiff and speaking in monosyllables. But Leon wasn't paying much attention to the guard, not when he kept catching whispers trailing behind him. Two maids passed by on cleaning duty. One of them shot him a glance, flushed, and leaned toward the other with a not-so-subtle whisper. "He's so adorable. That hair, did you see his eyes?" Leon rolled his eyes internally and kept walking, expression as flat as his patience. He wasn't unaware of how he looked. He remembered the first time he'd seen his reflection in a still puddle, silver-white hair, pale skin, and eyes like a snowstorm had learned how to stare back. It had actually startled him. He'd looked like a cursed prince from a children's tale. Definitely hit the genetic lottery on this one, he thought dryly. Still waiting for the strength stat to catch up, though. He passed 2 more servants. More giggles. Someone actually murmured the word ethereal. Leon suppressed a sigh. Ethereal. Great. I'll look like a fairy tale NPC right before they die for dramatic effect. Still, he didn't slow down. The more they gawked, the faster he wanted to get to wherever Seraphine was waiting. Because if there was one thing he trusted less than nobles, it was attention, and he was getting far too much of it lately. The guard opened the door to Seraphine's office, and Leon stepped in, already familiar with the space. Stone walls lined with maps, tall arched windows letting in pale morning light, and a large polished desk that made everything else in the room look too small. Commander Seraphine Vale sat behind it, already reviewing documents, quill in hand, armor half donned like she lived on the edge of battle and bureaucracy. She looked up, met his eyes, and gestured with a faint motion. "Sit. Make yourself comfortable." Leon moved to the seat across from her without comment. He didn't sprawl or slouch. He sat straight, alert, giving her the respect she clearly expected. Not out of submission, out of strategy. Seraphine set her quill down and studied him for a long moment. Then, without any preamble, she spoke. "I want you to join the city garrison as a temporary soldier. Provisional, not full rank." Leon tilted his head. "Back to recruitment, huh?" Her expression didn't waver. "You're talented, but you're still 7. I'm not sending you into missions tomorrow or next week. This is about training, resources, a future." He stayed quiet, let her talk. "You'd receive 10 silver a week. Meals, housing, education gear. The same perks I mentioned before." She leaned forward slightly, fingers laced. "But this time on a temporary basis. Think of it as a trial period for both of us." Leon raised an eyebrow. "Like a test run?" "Exactly. You gain strength under our guidance. I get to see how serious you are." Her tone remained composed, but there was a thread of interest under the discipline, a subtle curiosity. She wanted to see what he became, what rank his class would be, what he'd awaken as in that dungeon. She didn't say it aloud, but he caught it in her gaze, the spark behind the control. "And," she added, "you saved lives. In Grey Ridge. That earns you some trust." Leon considered that. She wasn't wrong. She'd pulled him out of the hellhole, clothed him, fed him, treated him well. She'd kept her word and her distance. If anything, she was playing the long game. Let him train. Let him settle. Let comfort do the convincing. It was smart and dangerous because he could see himself staying. But still, he wasn't ready to belong to anyone yet. Not even a city. Not even someone like her. He leaned back in his chair, slightly, and exhaled. Let her think he was tempted. That part was true. But the decision? Still his. Leon didn't respond right away. He stared at her, measured, thoughtful, the way someone twice his age might when weighing a deal that felt like it had more strings than promises. He tapped his fingers once on the armrest, slow and quiet. Finally, he exhaled and leaned forward. All right, he said. I'll join. Seraphine's brows lifted, not with surprise, but with calm satisfaction. Leon held up a finger. But let's be clear, this doesn't make me your soldier. Not permanently. I'm agreeing to the trial, not an oath. A pause. His tone didn't change, but there was steel under it. I'll train. I'll learn. I'll pull my weight. But if you think I'm going to become someone's loyal foot soldier just because I like the food, think again. Seraphine studied him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she gave a slow nod. Understood. She did understand. This boy, this razor-sharp, silver-eyed child with a mouth full of sarcasm and the self-awareness of a man thrice his age, wasn't going to be caged. Not by kindness. Not by gold. Not even by gratitude. But that didn't worry her. Because Seraphine Vale knew how to play long games, and this wasn't about chains. It was about bonds. The kind that grew from trust. And maybe a few other things too. Like, for example, the overwhelming desire to reach across her desk and squish his ridiculously perfect cheeks. She suppressed the urge with the cold discipline of a seasoned knight. But barely. He's just a child, she told herself. Just a child that looks like a doll carved out of snow and moonlight. Stop staring. You're a commander, not a doting ant. Still, her fingers twitched once on the tabletop. Seraphine had never made an offer without knowing the outcome. It wasn't how she operated. But Leon, he was a wild card. A gamble. One she was now very glad she'd taken. And besides, if she was going to train someone, personally train them, then it might as well be the strongest, strangest, most adorably sharp-mouthed disciple fate could throw her way. A talented apprentice, and a cute one? That was dangerously close to a dream come true. Leon, unaware of the exact flavor of doting war being waged behind her eyes, crossed his arms and muttered, "Just don't expect me to call you master or anything." Seraphine cleared her throat and nodded seriously. Of course. Not yet anyway, she thought. In her mind, Seraphine was already imagining it. Training sessions at dawn, sword forms corrected by hand, occasional cheek-pinching punishments for sarcastic remarks, a small, grumpy disciple who rolled his eyes every time she tried to hug him, but secretly didn't mind. She kept her face unreadable, of course. Years of command didn't allow for visible weakness. But oh, if restraint had a skill tree, she'd have maxed it out. Still seated with poise, she simply said, "The guard outside will escort you to your new room. It's within the mansion, closer to the training grounds." Leon blinked. Inside, yes. He tilted his head slightly. That was unexpected. A mansion room? For him? For a moment, paranoia pricked his instincts. It wasn't like he was used to luxury unless it came with strings. Probably wants to keep an eye on me, he thought, or make sure I don't run. Still, he gave a casual nod. Sure, long as the bed doesn't try to stab me, I'll manage. And with that, he hopped off the chair. 3 years. That's how long Leon had been in Duskmore. From the filth-stained gutters of Grey Ridge to the polished floors of a military estate. The difference was night and a very well-funded day. He had traded soup ladles for daggers, alley shadows for sword drills, and the constant ache of hunger for the constant ache of training. And now, 10 years old, leaner, faster, and far more dangerous, he was doing his usual morning routine, losing to his master. Clang! Steel sparked as Leon parried, pivoted, and lunged in a blur of silver motion. His twin daggers danced in his hands with honed precision, striking at precise angles, every step fluid, calculated. Across from him, barefoot on polished stone, stood Commander Seraphine Vale. No armor today, just a sleeveless black tunic, fitted trousers, and the relaxed poise of someone in complete control. A soft smile tugged at the corner of her mouth as they moved. She wasn't mocking, just pleased. Leon gritted his teeth and pressed harder. Sometimes he thought he had her. A twist of the blade, a fake-out feint, a half-step forward. But the moment he got close, her pressure shifted. Her smile sharpened. And then came the mana. _FWSHH. She surged forward, blade glowing faintly, speed multiplied, and within seconds, she disarmed him. One dagger flew across the floor. The other was batted from his grip like a toy. Leon stumbled back, breathing hard. A faint cut trailed along his forearm. Nothing serious. He stood still, silent, jaw clenched, eyes cast downward. Defeat. Again. No tantrum, no complaint, just the quiet weight of falling short. He barely registered the sound of her sword being sheathed. What he did register, however, was her sudden movement. In a blur, she crossed the distance and hugged him. Not a polite pat. A full-bodied squeeze, arms wrapped tight, burying his silver-haired head against her chest. Leon stood there, stiff as a training dummy. Expression flat, eyes half-lidded. Was that necessary? He asked dully. Absolutely, Seraphine said, resting her chin on his head. You've improved more than I expected. It deserves praise. I prefer not being used as a living plush toy. Too late. You've been claimed. Leon gave a small, suffering sigh. This is emotional misconduct. She squeezed a little tighter, unfazed. This is mentorship. His eye twitched. It's weird. No, it's effective. Leon didn't return the hug, didn't fight it either. He just endured it. Expression unmoved, dignity slowly draining like bathwater circling a drain. Somewhere in his soul, he quietly made peace with his fate. 3 years of training, and somehow this is what defeats me. Leon didn't move even after she finally released him. His daggers lay forgotten on the polished floor, and his arms stayed at his sides, but his brows were slightly furrowed, just enough to reveal the thought forming behind those sharp silver eyes. You're not winning without mana anymore. Seraphine blinked, stepping back half a pace. Leon tilted his head slightly, voice low, calm, and direct. It's been a month now. Every time we spar, you hold back until the end. And then he made a vague swirl motion with his hand, _mana cheat activated. She gave a faint smile. It's called magic enhancement. It's called unfair, he muttered. And while we're on the subject, when are you taking me to the class awakening dungeon? Silence. A flicker passed through her eyes. He'd asked before. Twice. Each time she'd redirected with food, sparring, or some random excuse about preparations. But now he wasn't letting it go. Seraphine exhaled slowly, walking toward the bench near the courtyard wall and sitting down, armorless and elegant even in casual clothes. For a moment, she said nothing, because the truth was, she knew Leon was ready. In fact, she wasn't entirely sure she could beat him anymore without magic. His movements, instincts, precision, he was already fighting like someone twice his age. He was _10, that shouldn't have been possible. And yet, he was more than prepared to awaken. She had no doubt he'd breeze through the dungeon. And that was the problem. Because she knew, that once Leon had his class, once he was recognized by the kingdom as a combatant worthy of record and rank, he wouldn't stay. He wouldn't belong to her command. He wouldn't settle into her plans. He would go, not out of rebellion, not out of spite, but because that was who he was. Independent, sharp, free. He might still visit. He might even remain within Duskmoor for a time. But he wouldn't be hers, not truly. And Seraphine Vale, feared Knight Commander of Duskmoor, found that thought terrifying in a way battlefield injuries never had. He was her disciple, her tiny, grumpy, knife-wielding prodigy, her emotionally unavailable, sarcasm-powered miniature knight. And she couldn't imagine the estate without his quiet footsteps, his blunt remarks, or the subtle, oddly mature way he looked at the world. He'd wormed his way into her heart and set up a permanent residence. A child she wanted to train. A partner she wanted at her side. a boy she wanted to squish and protect and never let the politics or leeches of nobility sink their teeth into. But she couldn't tie him down, because if she tried, he'd cut himself free. So she stalled, made excuses, because in her mind, if he didn't awaken, he wouldn't underscore leave on Thur. And if he wouldn't become a formal soldier or knight, then at least she could keep him close. Not as some low-ranking grunt. No, those ranks weren't fit for her cutie, where she could hug him at will, where she could tug his soft cheeks after a good spar, where she could see him every morning and imagine, just for a while, that maybe fate had given her something underscore, just for herself underscore. Seraphine smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes, because as strong as her presence was, as commanding as her posture appeared, she was the one being bound now, by affection, by fear, by the very bond she'd once imagined using to bind him. "Leon," she said softly, her voice carrying both warmth and a quietic, "why are you in such a rush to awaken?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, "Because I want to stand on my own." She closed her eyes for a brief moment. Of course he did. That was always the reason. And that was exactly why she was afraid. Fun of her. Leon stared at her for a long second. No sarcasm, no smirk, just calm, silver-eyed resolve. Then he did something he'd never done before. He stepped closer, tilted his head just slightly, widened his silver eyes until they shimmered like winter moonlight, pure, soft, devastating. And with a voice that was far too sincere for his usual brand of trouble, he said, "Please, master, I really want to grow stronger and stand on my own." Seraphine blinked. A crack formed. Somewhere deep in her soul, her composure screamed and underscore detonated underscore. Her thoughts scattered like startled birds. Underscore puppy eyes. He's using puppy eyes. Full tilt. With that voice. That tilt. He's never. Why has he never done this before? That's illegal. That's unfair. That's divine tier manipulation. Underscore. She physically flinched. It was too effective. Far too effective. Her hands actually twitched, half reaching to squeeze him, hug him, drag him back to her office, and never let him leave again. Underscore stay strong, Seraphine. You've fought warlords. You've held fortress gates against ogres. You can resist one tiny underscore. He tilted his head a little more. She broke. Almost. She exhaled like someone surrendering the last line of a losing battle, leaning back slightly in defeat, one hand lifting to rub the bridge of her nose. "You're cruel, you know that?" Leon's eyes stayed wide. Innocent. Utterly relentless. Seraphine glared, but it had no heat. Only resigned fondness. "Fine," she muttered. "You win. I'll arrange for your awakening trial." Leon blinked once. His eyes dimmed back to normal, his posture relaxed, and a tiny, satisfied smirk ghosted across his lips. She stared at him. "You planned that." He shrugged. "I used my best weapon." She sighed. "And I let my guard down. Against a child. A very determined child." Seraphine leaned forward, elbows on her knees, burying her face in her hands with a groan. "This is what I get for adopting a demon with snow hair." "Adopting?" Leon echoed, cocking an eyebrow. She looked up and said nothing. But her smile, small, warm, and heartbreakingly human, said everything. Morning light spilled across the ornate ceiling of Leon's bedroom, gilding the fine woodwork and silk curtains in soft gold. He didn't blink, didn't even open his eyes, because he was already awake. Seated cross-legged in the center of a lush carpet, Leon's posture screamed discipline, serenity, meditative focus, which of course was a complete lie. Inside, he was somewhere else entirely. The world beyond his skin was luxury and light. But within, a gray expanse of silence. The dimensional hourglass. He no longer needed the artifact to access it. Not after the breakthrough he'd made during his second year in Duskmore. A quiet experiment, a half-whim of intent, and suddenly he was inside. Just like that. No need to summon. No need to hold the relic. It had made him stupidly happy at the time. Enough to roll across the floor laughing before collapsing into a full 48-hour nap inside the vault. This was his sanctuary now. Silent. Still. Timeless. perfect for someone who hated being watched. And today, he'd woken early just to center himself here. Today was big. Knock, knock. A sharp rap on the door pulled him back to reality. Leon exhaled, blinked, and the world snapped back into place. His bedroom, vast and decorated with far more embroidery than necessary, greeted him like a polite butler. He stood, padded to the door, and opened it a crack. A familiar face greeted him. One of Seraphine's trusted guards, a woman with clipped words and always perfect posture, gave a brisk nod. "Young Master Leon," she said, "the commander has sent a carriage. She's waiting outside." Leon's eyes sharpened. There was only one thing this could mean. For days, for long days since Seraphine had caved under his ultimate move, for days of suppressed anticipation. And now, finally, class awakening. He shut the door behind him with a quiet click, heart hammering beneath his calm expression. Downstairs, the halls were already alive. Maids in soft uniforms bustled about, dusting, folding, lighting lanterns. The moment Leon stepped into view, a wave of warm smiles lit up like torches in the gloom. "Good morning, young Master Leon." "Oh, he's already dressed. So punctual. Look at him, like a porcelain doll with knives." Leon gave a polite nod, murmuring "morning" in return. The reaction was instant. A small cluster of maids all but melted against the wall, giggling into their sleeves. He looked right at me. Did you see? His hair's glowing again in the sun. Leon didn't stop walking, but he did roll his eyes, just a little. This is why I train in a time-lock void. No witnesses to my shame. Still, a small smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. He was ready. Today, the system that governed this strange world would finally give him a class. Master had told I would be able to see it after getting my class, and Leon intended to make it regret the delay. Leon stepped out into the morning light, boots crunching softly against the cobblestone driveway. The mansion gates loomed in the distance, flanked by silver-armored guards and an ornate carriage trimmed in duskmore blue. And there she was, Seraphine Vale, Knight Commander, Duskmore's Iron Rose, dressed in her sharp, ceremonial armor with her violet hair braided back like royalty, preparing for war. She spotted him instantly, and before he could even brace for it, whomp, she swooped forward and wrapped him in a tight, steel-bending hug, smashing his face directly into her armored chest. "Good morning, my dear disciple," she declared with battlefield enthusiasm, her voice as bright as sunrise and twice as loud. Leon, face still lodged somewhere between silk and suffocation, let out a muffled grumble. Morning. He didn't struggle, didn't squirm, just endured it with quiet dignity. This was the price of mentorship, apparently. Eventually, she pulled back, still smiling. He gave her a flat look. "We really need to discuss boundaries." Seraphine just patted his head fondly. "We really don't." With that, she opened the carriage door and gestured grandly. Leon stepped in first, expecting her to follow and take the seat across from him. Instead, she sat directly beside him. Tightly, Leon glanced at the other, perfectly empty side of the carriage. Then at her. She smiled sweetly and offered no explanation. He sighed, leaned slightly away, and resigned himself to fate once more. The carriage began to roll. Duskmore streets passed in a blur outside the window as cobblestone became dirt road and city walls faded behind them. Trees whispered overhead, and the air was crisp with early light. Leon kept his eyes on the horizon until Seraphine finally spoke. "You're not the only one entering the dungeon today," she said. Leon blinked, turning slightly. "It's a multi-candidate trial," she explained. "Other promising individuals from cities and territories across the region will also be entering, each one attempting to awaken their class." Leon absorbed that with a quiet nod. "Makes sense. Can't waste a good dungeon." She didn't comment on the sarcasm. Instead, her tone softened just a little. "You'll be assessed individually. It's not a contest, but the awakening responds to will, instinct, desire, strength of self." Leon narrowed his eyes. "And how dangerous is it?" Seraphine gave a thin smile. "Dangerous enough. Not fatal, unless you make a mistake. But I wouldn't have allowed this if I thought you couldn't handle it." That part? That part she meant with absolute sincerity. Leon didn't notice the subtle tension in her shoulders. Didn't hear the unspoken name she'd refused to mention. Because what she hadn't told him was that she'd spent the last 4 days not arranging the dungeon, but clearing it, scrubbing it of political presence. She'd pulled strings, called favors, silenced whispers, all to ensure one thing. Not a single noble from a high-ranking house would be present today. The class awakening ceremony is usually attended by nobles who may include high-ranking members looking to recruit promising individuals. She could handle lower-ranking noble, but not those high-ranking one. She didn't have enough influence for that. Because Leon might not understand yet, but Seraphine did. The moment his class awakened, he would shine. She was sure of it. And if anyone else saw that shine, especially the wrong kind of noble, they'd try to own it. Try to own him. And Seraphine Vale? She wasn't about to let her disciple get snatched by some leech in a gilded robe. He was hers. Hers to train. Hers to protect. Hers to hug and squash and scold and one day stand beside. And if that meant burning a few bridges to make sure the right eyes never even saw him, so be it. Leon remained silent beside her, silver eyes fixed on the winding road ahead, unaware of the war being quietly fought in his name. But he would learn. Soon. Leon's silver eyes gleamed as the trees parted and the road stretched ahead. So he wouldn't be alone in the dungeon. Other talents, other fighters, maybe even prodigies from other cities. The idea thrilled him. He'd never faced anyone in real combat except Seraphine. And let's be honest, that was like trying to punch a dragon with a broomstick. Some variety will be nice, he thought, lips curling faintly. Maybe I'll even get to win a fight without being smothered afterward. He leaned back slightly as the carriage jostled over a ridge, hands clasped behind his head. So, what's the actual goal? Seraphine looked over at him. Each of you will be dropped into different starting points. The dungeon is tiered, meant for awakening, not killing, but still real. Real monsters, real wounds. He nodded. You'll need to clear it. Specifically, defeat the boss monster at the heart of the trial floor. Once that's done, your soul will be evaluated. Based on that, the system will assign your class. Leon raised an eyebrow. Assign? I don't get to choose. In most cases, no. But she tilted her head slightly. In rare situations, candidates are given a choice, especially if their traits pull toward multiple advanced paths. He absorbed that with a slow nod, gears already turning behind his eyes. So what you're saying is, don't mess it up. Exactly. She leaned in, her tone softer but firmer. The class you awaken with becomes the foundation of your strength. Some are versatile, some are specialized. A bad fit can hold you back for life. Leon gave her a dry look. No pressure. I trust you, she said simply. His expression twitched, surprised for a moment. Then he looked away. Seraphine continued, her voice just loud enough to rise over the rumble of the wheels. But if by some chance you are offered a choice, be careful. Don't pick something just because it sounds flashy. Think about how you fight, what you want, who you are. Leon's eyes returned to her, steadier now. I've already decided, he said. Seraphine blinked. Oh, I don't know what they'll offer, but I know what I want. I don't want to be someone else's sword. I want to be the kind of blade that chooses its own battles. She didn't answer, but she smiled. Small, proud, a little sad. The rest of the ride passed in silence, broken only by the clatter of wheels and the distant cry of birds overhead. Leon's hand rested near his waist, fingers twitching occasionally, imagining combat, precision, movement. Soon he'd know what kind of power would awaken within him, and more importantly, what kind of warrior he'd choose to become. The carriage came to a slow halt just beyond the perimeter of the portal field. Leon, still seated inside, brushed the curtain aside to peer through the glass. There it stood, massive, swirling, and impossibly vibrant. A portal of deep cerulean light hovered in the distance, nearly 3 stories tall, its surface rippling like disturbed water. Magical currents bled from its core in shimmering waves, making the air around it shimmer like a mirage. Arrayed around it were tents, war banners, stone pedestals etched with runes, and scores of people moving in organized chaos. He spotted armored soldiers, mages wrapped in arcane robes, scribes carrying sheaves of enchanted paper, and of course, the hopeful candidates, each one young, sharpened, and trying not to show how nervous they were. The moment the carriage door creaked open, the atmosphere shifted. Click, clack, step. Commander Seraphine Vale stepped out first, her silver-plated boots striking the cobbled path with practiced grace. The morning light hit her perfectly, catching in the fine weave of her violet hair as it fell in soft waves across her back. A hush fell over the nearby crowd. That's Commander Seraphine Vale, right? A nervous recruit murmured under his breath. Who else has hair like that and walks like she owns the sun? Another whispered. A few of the officials near the front bowed their heads quickly, while several knights straightened their posture immediately, back stiff, eyes forward, like a general had just passed inspection. She's even scarier in person. Someone muttered with awe, but there was more murmuring when Leon stepped down beside her. His cloak fluttered slightly in the wind, but it couldn't hide the sleek dark armor beneath. Lightweight, layered for mobility, custom-fitted. At his waist gleamed a pair of expertly forged daggers, nothing like the plain steel most recruits wore. Every detail, his silver-white hair, pale skin, and calm, piercing eyes, stood out in stark contrast to the nervous or overeager expressions around them. Who's the kid? Wait, don't tell me that's her disciple. Looks too young. Yeah, and too damn pretty. I thought she wasn't the mentoring type. I thought she was the execution type. Leon didn't react to any of it. He walked a half-step behind her, his expression unreadable, but his gaze swept the field, sharp and clinical. They didn't know who he was. Not really, but his presence, his bearing, especially beside someone like her, told its own story. If Seraphine was a blade drawn by the realm, then Leon looked like the knife she kept hidden in her sleeve. Think he's nobility in disguise? Maybe. Or an orphan she picked up. You never know with people like her. Still, walking beside her, that says enough. The whispers continued as they passed through the portal field, people instinctively parting for them. Some bowed slightly to Seraphine. Others just stared, at both of them, with curiosity, awe, or subtle unease. She offered no greetings, no explanations, just that cold, commanding silence. And Leon? He didn't care what they said. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. He wasn't here to impress. He was here to awaken. As the two of them continued their quiet walk toward the staging area, the buzz in the air only grew louder, but now it was edged with confusion. He's got to be here just to watch, right? Yeah, I mean, no way that kid's entering the dungeon. Probably her apprentice or something. She's just letting him see what the big leagues look like. Maybe a nephew, disciple, more likely. She trains him in secret, lets him swing a wooden sword at apples or something. Leon caught every word. Didn't flinch, didn't glance back. But a dry thought flickered through his mind as his gaze wandered toward the portal's azure light. They think I'm here on a school trip. He didn't blame them. Most of the people gathered near the field looked older. The kind of older that came with sun-scarred skin, defined jawlines, and the faint shadows of experience in their eyes. Some of the candidates were clearly in their late teens, 16, 17, maybe older. A few even had the rough outlines of beards, arms thicker than his legs, and that slow, deliberate movement that came from real combat experience. Leon was 10, physically at least, but he scanned their faces, their stances, their unease with 1 part caution and 2 parts boredom. They're older, bigger, stronger, but not sharper. He died at 16, back on Earth. Spent 3 more years training here under Seraphine's boot and fond, suffocating hugs. By his math, he was 19 now. 19 in the body of a preteen with a baby face and borderline ethereal features. Mentally older than most of them, emotionally more jaded than all of them, and definitely better dressed, he mused, casually adjusting his cloak. Let them underestimate him. That was fine. Leon had always liked starting from a disadvantage. Made the victories feel more personal. And soon, they'd all be locked in a dungeon together. And the dungeon didn't care how old you looked, only how well you survived. A sharp voice rang out near the portal, cutting through the crowd like a whip. All entrants form a line. Trial candidates only. Entry passes must be shown to proceed. Dozens of heads turned. Several armored guards, each bearing the sigil of the central authority, stepped forward with practiced discipline. One of them raised a scroll and unfurled it theatrically. Anyone attempting to bypass protocol without an official trial pass will be detained and imprisoned. No exceptions, no bribes, no begging. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The murmuring faded as candidates began moving, boots crunching on stone and grass as a line formed before the swirling blue gate. Some looked nervous. Others tried to project confidence, clenching fists, loosening shoulders, muttering half-baked mantras under their breath. One by one, the guards checked the engraved tokens each candidate presented, sigil stamped, mana threaded, and waved them through. Leon didn't move. He remained standing beside Seraphine, arms folded loosely, silver eyes watching the line with quiet amusement. She hadn't told him to go yet, and besides, there was something he'd been wondering for a while now. He tilted his head toward her and asked casually, "So, what's your class anyway?" Seraphine turned to him slowly, amethyst eyes unreadable. She didn't answer at first, just looked at him, her expression calm, but with thoughts clearly flickering behind her gaze. He was curious, sincere, and she didn't blame him. He had every right to ask, but after a pause, she gave him a faint, almost playful smile. "I'm not telling you." Leon raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" She smirked softly. "That high?" He blinked. "So what top 10? "In the kingdom," she echoed. "There are few with my rank. None above it." That made Leon pause. "So, she's top rank, and still somehow acts like a hug-happy older sister with control issues." Still, he didn't ask again, because Seraphine's tone shifted, just slightly. Not in secrecy, but purpose. "I'm not hiding it," she added, eyes on the portal. "I just don't want you chasing after it. Or me." Leon turned his gaze to her fully now. "Because you think I'll fall short?" She looked at him then, and the softness in her voice was stark against the military command in the air. "No," she said, "because I think you'll go farther." He stilled. For a heartbeat, no quip came to his lips, just a quiet flicker of surprise in his eyes. Then he smirked lightly. "You're getting sappy again. I'm your master. I'm allowed to be." They both looked toward the line of candidates, growing shorter now. The portal pulsed, and Seraphine rested a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Don't be in a rush," she said. "The dungeon's not going anywhere. But you're going to go further than any of them." Leon didn't answer. He didn't need to. His steady breath, the faint curl of his lips, and the focus in his eyes said enough. He wasn't here to chase anyone's shadow. The line was thinning. One by one, candidates were disappearing into the swirling blue gate, each checked, stamped, and given the go-ahead. Only a handful remained now. Murmurs among the spectators died down as anticipation turned to a quiet tension. Leon stood beside Seraphine, still cloaked, still calm. Then, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small metallic token, circular, polished, and etched with a precise insignia. Her insignia, the blade-wreathed eye of Duskmoor's Knight Commander. She handed it to him without flourish. "Your pass," she said simply. Leon took it, eyes flicking over the design. "Stamped with my authority," she added. "That's all they'll need." He gave a short nod, then turned toward the end of the line, falling in behind the last two candidates, older teens still whispering nervously among themselves. When his turn came, the two guards posted by the portal turned to him, already gesturing. One of them, clearly the senior, reached out for the token, but froze the moment he saw the insignia. His entire posture shifted, eyes wide, back straight, voice low and extremely respectful. He turned towards Seraphine. "Commander Vale," he said carefully. "With all due respect, he's very young. If he enters, he could die." Seraphine's expression didn't shift. Her voice was calm, composed. "I am. That was all. Not, I'm sure. Not, he'll be fine. Just I am." The guard nodded immediately. No more questions. No more doubts. He turned back to Leon and waved him forward quickly. Go. The portal's closing soon. Leon moved without hesitation, stepping toward the edge of the gate. He paused only once, turning over his shoulder, eyes locking with Seraphine's. She gave him a small wave, a rare, soft smile on her face. He raised a hand in return and then stepped into the light. The moment his foot vanished through the threshold, something changed. The portal shuddered. Energy flared along its edges like a pulse of lightning cracking through a storm cloud. The swirling currents turned turbulent. A deep, vibrating hum filled the air. The guards froze. So did the candidates. And Seraphine's smile vanished like sunlight behind storm clouds. Her instinct screamed. This wasn't a normal ripple. This wasn't part of the process. This was false read. A mage behind her muttered, staring at a stone tablet in horror. The energy density just tripled, no, quadrupled. Another voice, shaking. The internal balance is off. That trial just became unstable. Monsters inside will be level 3 minimum, maybe 4s. Possibly a 5-class boss. There was a moment of silence. Then panic. Candidates gasped. A few stepped back, pale. And the awakened soldiers, veterans who'd seen what dungeons could do, looked grim. One of them whispered, "We just lost everyone inside." Another, "There's no way they'll survive." Not at that spike. A younger knight clenched his fists. That was a full talent batch. 27 of the best from 6 cities. And now, he didn't finish, because Seraphine was still staring at the portal. Not moving, not speaking, but something behind her eyes broke, because the second that portal had flared, she'd felt it. This wasn't a mild trial anymore. This was a crucible, and her Leon was inside it. She clenched her fists slowly. She had prepared him, trained him, watched him grow sharper than steel. But this was not what she had planned. Still, she said nothing, gave no orders, didn't scream, just stood there, eyes fixed on the vortex, as the panic swirled around her like wind against stone. Inside her chest, her heart beat once hard. Please, come back. She wasn't the only one thinking it, because for the first time in decades, even the most battle-hardened mages and knights watching that gate felt like they'd just witnessed a mass execution. And the worst part? None of them could follow. The moment Leon crossed the threshold, the world turned inside out. His stomach twisted violently. Gravity bent sideways. His vision went white for a second, then slammed into sharp, overwhelming focus. Thud! He stumbled on a solid ground, knees buckling, hands bracing against rough, mossy stone. A breath hitched in his throat, and he barely resisted the urge to vomit. Ugh! Okay, that was worse than lightning. He forced himself upright, one hand clutching his gut, the other brushing back silver-white hair as his vision steadied. The air here felt dense. Every breath tasted like cold iron and ancient soil. He didn't have time to check his surroundings, because a deep growl carved through the silence like a blade. Leon's instinct screamed. He rolled to the side just as something massive crashed where he'd just been, jagged claws tearing into stone with a violent crack. A giant wolf stood in front of him now, muscles rippling beneath thick charcoal fur, eyes glowing yellow with unnatural hunger. Its breath steamed in the cold dungeon air, fangs slick with old blood. Leon landed in a crouch, already drawing his twin daggers with a smooth, practiced motion. They gleamed in the dim light, razor-sharp, custom-forged, and thirsty. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, just stared. Oh, you knew. The wolf snarled, hackles raised. Leon inhaled once, steadying his pulse. This wasn't like the goblins in Grey Ridge. This wasn't street-level violence. This thing was fast, heavy, and deeply unnatural. And just by the way it moved, by the silent tension in its frame, Leon knew. It was far stronger than the level 2 goblin warrior he'd barely defeated before. He could already tell. This wolf was faster, meaner, and very likely a level 3 monster. Maybe higher. Leon tightened his grip on his daggers, exhaled slowly, and muttered under his breath. All right then. Let's see what 3 years of blood, sweat, and Seraphine's insane training gets me. The beast lunged, and the real fight began. The wolf moved again, faster this time, jaws wide, fangs glinting like swords. Leon crossed his daggers just in time. Clang! The impact jarred down his arms like a hammer against bone. His feet scraped back along the stone floor, boots skidding, knees nearly buckling. His breath hitched. His hands trembled. Too strong. He gritted his teeth. He couldn't take another hit like that. Not head-on. He wouldn't survive. The wolf didn't wait. It lunged again, pure muscle and malice in motion. Leon twisted to the side, narrowly avoiding the bite, and slashed upward with his right dagger. Fast, clean, aimed at the beast's exposed underbelly. Slice. Blood. Not a deep wound, but enough to make it snarl and stagger. Leon hit the ground in a controlled roll, rising in a low crouch, eyes locked on the beast. Good. It can bleed. The wolf turned, more cautious now, but its yellow eyes blazed hotter. It growled deep, angry, insulted. Leon didn't taunt it. He didn't waste words. He just waited, let the rage blind it. And when it charged again, fangs snapping, claws flashing, Leon didn't retreat. He moved. Sidestep. Lunge. Slash. His left dagger drew a clean line across its flank. The right plunged into its front leg and tore free in one smooth, practiced twist. The wolf howled. It tried to counter. Leon ducked low, pivoted behind it, and carved upward, precise, clinical, merciless. Every move was drilled. Every dodge measured. He didn't panic. He didn't falter. He danced around it, just as Seraphine had taught him, with speed, control, and soul-numbing patience. The beast slowed, bleeding, breathing heavy, and with a final feint, Leon dashed in, leaped onto its back, and drove both daggers into the base of its skull. Crack! The wolf twitched once, then collapsed in a heap of blood and bone. Leon landed beside it, rising slowly. His breathing was calm. His daggers glistened red. No wounds. No hesitation. Just a 10-year-old boy, silver eyes like winter steel, standing over a monster twice his size. He flicked the blood off his blades and exhaled. Level 3 or 4. Knowing guessing wouldn't give him an answer, he didn't give much thought. He sheathed the daggers with a soft click. Try again. Leon crouched beside the fallen wolf. One hand braced on its bloodied shoulder, the other reaching beneath the thick fur and cracked bone. A moment later, his fingers closed around something faintly warm. A manicore. Small, rough-edged, still pulsing faintly with residual light. Got it, he thought, pulling it free and turning it over in his palm. It was duller than he expected, not as radiant as stories claimed, but it was his first. He slipped it into his pouch carefully. Don't forget to collect every core. Seraphine's voice echoed in his memory. Once you awaken, you'll need them. Consuming cores is the fastest way to strengthen yourself at the start. He'd rolled his eyes when she'd said that, mostly because she'd said it while trying to spoon-feed him soup like he was 6. But now he understood the weight behind those words. Every victory mattered. Every resource had a purpose. Every core was power waiting to be unlocked. With the wolf dealt with and his breath steadying, Leon finally let himself take in the world around him. The dungeon. He hadn't noticed before, too busy not dying, but now that his blood wasn't on fire, the details came into focus. The stone beneath him wasn't regular masonry. It was ancient, cracked, overgrown with roots, faintly glowing with threads of dormant runes. The ceiling arched far overhead, carved with forgotten sigils. Moss grew in patches, giving the air a damp, earthen tang. And the light? It didn't come from torches or magic lanterns. It came from the walls themselves, soft pulses of blue and violet leaking from runes buried under layers of grime. Not enough to illuminate fully, but enough to cast strange shadows across every jagged surface. This place feels alive. Not just inhabited, not just dangerous. Alive. He didn't like it. Leon exhaled softly and reached into his cloak, brushing fingers against the faint seam near the shoulder. Time to move. The last fight had gone well. Too well, actually, but he wasn't going to let that lull him. A one-on-one kill was doable. But if two more wolves jumped in mid-recovery, he wouldn't walk out of here, not even with his regeneration ring. He tapped the embedded rune of his cloak of mild invisibility, the fabric thrumming faintly in response. It didn't shimmer, didn't glow. He simply vanished, not with a grand flourish, not with a flicker of light. Just gone. His heart ticked up slightly, but his steps were steady as he crept forward. He didn't make the cloak while someone was looking, which meant he'd stay invisible. For now. He moved like a shadow, slow, deliberate, close to the wall. And as he walked, his thoughts drifted back to the hundreds of experiments he'd run with his treasures during training. Hours inside the dimensional hourglass, testing, retesting, refining. And the cloak? It had turned out to be a borderline cheat item. It's not true invisibility, he'd muttered once while writing in his journal. It's just really convenient selective blindness. If they don't see you vanish, they won't see you appear. But it had flaws. Big ones. No sound masking, no sense suppression, and no second chances if someone caught a flicker. That meant no talking, no tripping, no breathing too loud, and most of all, no mistakes. After another few minutes of careful travel, Leon froze. Blood. The coppery smell hit his nose before the scene did. Two bodies lay crumpled near a collapsed archway. One slumped against stone, the other sprawled face down. Both wore light armor. Both looked fresh. Candidates. From his group. He hadn't even talked to them. But something in his gut twisted all the same. They weren't just dead. They were torn. Claw marks. Ripped throats. Unfinished kill. Pack behavior, he realized, eyes narrowing. His gaze shifted left, then caught motion. 3 wolves. Still lingering. Prowling around the corpses. Searching. One of them sniffed the air. Leon stayed perfectly still, hidden by cloak and distance. They haven't seen me yet, but this would be dangerous. 3 enemies. One of him. And invisibility wouldn't last long if he made a single noise. He crouched lower, weighing his options. Avoid unless necessary, Seraphine had taught. But she'd also said, if you must strike, end it fast. 3 wolves stood near the corpses, tearing at what remained, snarling, feeding, half alert. Those 2 entered with me, maybe from one of the outer cities. Strong enough to be chosen, not strong enough to survive. He didn't move closer yet, not until he reviewed his odds. 3 enemies. I can't engage head-on, not unless I want a tooth lodged in my ribcage. But if I use the cloak right. Leon remembered all the tests. Back in the estate, I experimented with this thing 100 ways. If I activate it while no one's watching and stay quiet, I stay invisible, indefinitely, until I cancel it or make a mistake. But again, no masking of scent sound. Still, it was enough for a clean approach. As long as he didn't get cocky. Right. No distractions. Think tactically. Quietly get the drop on one. Kill it instantly, then pivot. Cloak reactivates the second eye break line of sight. He breathed in once, slow and calm. Then the thought crept in, quiet, unshakable. Seraphine said performance mattered. The better I do in here, the higher the chance I awaken a rare class. He looked at the wolves again, narrowing his gaze. Mediocre isn't an option, because it wasn't just about surviving this dungeon anymore. It was about reaching further. I was thrown into the lower domain, the bottom rung of the earthly plane. The entity made it sound like a punishment, but also a test. He remembered the being's words, that faint echo in the void, that if fate aligned, they might meet again, and more importantly, that it wasn't a god. Not even close. There are beings who walk galaxies like footpaths, who blink and suns die. That's what's out there. That's the scale I'm up against. Leon's chest rose slowly. His fists clenched. Seraphine is one of the strongest in this kingdom, but even she's confined to its borders. This world, it's small. Even the sky feels like a ceiling. But beyond that, beyond the dungeons and empires and domains, there is something else. Planets, races, worlds. I want that. I want to see it all. Not just out of curiosity, but because for the first time in both his lives, he had a purpose. Not survival, not peace, but discovery. He He wanted to find beauty no one else had seen, stand in places no human had ever walked, speak to entities that didn't have names. And to do that, I need power, not borrowed, not handed down, earned. His eyes opened, bright and cold like a distant moon. Starting now. 3 wolves. One of him. Leon crouched in the shadowed edge of the corridor, gaze fixed, breath slow. The beasts paced, unaware, yet. Outnumbered? Yeah. Outmatched? Hell no. He flexed his grip on the daggers, silver eyes gleaming beneath the hood. If I move first, this ends before they even process it. Leon began to move, daggers in hand, cloak hugging his body like mist. And death followed, silent and unseen. 3 wolves, 3 blades, 2 held in Leon's hands, 1 sharpened in his mind, right flanks exposed. The middle one's the alpha, slightly larger, more scarred. Third one's jumpy, head flicking side to side. I hit the right first. Fast, quiet. 1 strike. Leon slid forward through the half-shadow, barely disturbing the stone beneath his boots. The cloak of mild invisibility held. The wolves continued tearing into flesh, unaware that death now watched from behind their blind spot. He crept within 5 paces. 4, 3, then, step, draw, lunge. The blade kissed fur and muscle. Slice. The dagger went straight through the wolf's neck from the side, cutting into the artery with no resistance. A soft grunt, a twitch, and it dropped. 1 down. Leon didn't stop. He didn't pause to gloat. His other hand pressed the cloak again, reactivating the mild invisibility just as the 2 remaining wolves jerked up, snouts twitching, eyes wide, confused. The corpse of their packmate hit the ground with a final thud. They snarled, but couldn't see him. Keep it tight. No sound. Don't let them guess. Alpha's sniffing the air. Damn, it's catching scent. 20 seconds tops before it tracks me. Leon ghosted left, circling with silent precision. He calculated every step, every angle. Then the alpha lunged, not at him, but toward the nearest cover, expecting a direct attacker to retreat. Wrong move. Leon used the opening. Dash. Leap. Strike. From behind, he drove his right dagger deep between the wolf's shoulder and spine. It howled, but his second blade followed instantly, slicing into its hamstring before it could turn. Lame it. Drop it. End it. The alpha staggered, then buckled as Leon's blade pierced the base of its skull. Thud. 2. Blood sprayed across the stone floor. Leon's cloak flared and dropped, timed deliberately. The last wolf saw him now, eyes wide, terrified, alone. It backed up, tail low, growling. Leon just stared at it. Calm, measured. He raised a single dagger and pointed it at the beast. Run. It didn't. It charged. Leon exhaled once, steadying his stance. No more hiding. The wolf leapt. He dodged. Swipe. Feint. Parry. Its claws grazed his arm, barely. The ring of minor regeneration flared softly, sealing the scratch before blood could flow. Leon stepped back, used the beast's momentum, then dropped, swept the leg, and sent it tumbling sideways. The moment its back hit the floor, Leon pounced. Twin blades. 2 strikes. 1 stabbed through the wolf's lower rib. The other slashed across its throat, deep and final. Blood splattered across his chest. The wolf spasmed, then went still. 3. He stood slowly, breath measured, watching for any movement. Nothing. Only silence. Leon exhaled, wiping 1 blade clean on the fur of the beast before him. The adrenaline in his veins began to fade, but only slightly. He'd won. Clean. Fast. Surgical. But his thoughts didn't rush to celebration. Instead, they stayed steady. If I made a single misstep, if one of them got behind me, if the cloak failed, he shook the thought away. Victory was earned, but it never came without risk. Leon turned back to the bodies of the fallen candidates, their faces pale and slack. He didn't feel much. He hadn't known them, but he gave a slow nod of acknowledgement. Rest easy. Better performance. Higher class potential. That's what she said. He crouched, removed the mana cores from all 3 wolves. Clean, efficient. then activated the cloak again and disappeared into the corridor beyond. 3 cores down. No injuries. No wasted movements. But this was just the warm-up. Time blurred as Leon advanced deeper into the dungeon. Stone corridors twisted like a broken maze, walls carved with age-worn glyphs and veins of faintly glowing ore. But nothing caught him off guard. Not the flickering floor tiles meant to collapse. Not the thin threads barely visible across corners. Seraphine had trained him for traps. Painfully. Check twice, step once. If you're lucky, it's just a dart. If not, it's your legs. Leon moved like a ghost, sweeping corners, testing pressure plates, ducking low when the air changed. None of the rudimentary traps stood chance. The wolves, though, those kept coming. 2 more attacked near a collapsed bridge. Leon disarmed one with a hamstring cut and ended it before the second even lunged. Another trio cornered him in a half-cave corridor. He danced between them, sidestep, parry, counter, blades glinting, movement flawless. No hesitation, no theatrics, just efficient, clean violence. Every time a body dropped, Leon crouched, retrieved the mana core, and stored it within the shimmering inventory tethered to his soul. The system worked perfectly, but something kept scratching at the back of his mind. Too easy. They never grouped in 4s or 5s. Always 3 or fewer. It made him cautious, not careless. Because if there's one thing he'd learned in both lives, easy doesn't last. He never dropped his guard. Every time he took a corner, his grip tightened. Every time he bent to retrieve a core, his ears strained for the slightest sound. This was real experience, not training, not theory. And it showed in the way his body moved, fluid, coiled, lethal. The Leon from Grey Ridge would have died 10 times already. This Leon? He was surviving. No, thriving. Then he saw it. At the end of the next hall, through a broken arch, another wolf stood alone. Same height, similar mass. But unlike the others, this one had a single curved horn jutting from its forehead. Its fur shimmered with streaks of sapphire blue, threading through the usual grays like liquid lightning. And even from a distance, it looked intelligent. Eyes locked, breath steady, muscles still. It's not pacing, not growling, just watching. Leon narrowed his gaze. Unique variant? Elite? He crouched low, cloak fluttering as he ghosted along the outer edge of the wall. The dagger in his left hand tilted slightly, ready for a silent back thrust. Get in. Strike hard. Don't let it call for Baku. Fwash! A bolt of crackling light exploded from the horn. Leon's eyes went wide. He twisted just enough. The blast grazed past him, slamming into the wall behind and turning stone to molten slag. His invisibility dropped instantly. He hit the ground hard and rolled to his feet, daggers out, heart hammering. It saw me. It saw through the cloak before I even moved. The wolf stepped forward, slow, calm. Blue lightning crackled faintly along its horn. Leon didn't waste time gawking. He shifted his stance, eyes locked. Well, he muttered, lips curling into a slow grin. Finally, something interesting. Neither of them moved. Not the wolf, its eyes glowing faintly with that cold, crackling energy. Not Leon, crouched low, cloak fluttering behind him in tatters of half-burned threads. Stalemate, but only for now. Leon's breath slowed. That wasn't normal magic. That was lightning-based. A monster with a ranged elemental attack, and it saw through the cloak, which means either enhanced senses or it sensed my mana presence somehow. His grip on the daggers tightened, muscles coiled. If there's another one of these nearby, if they attack together. He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. One-on-one, he had options, tools, even advantages. But two, he wasn't Seraphine. He wasn't untouchable. Yet. Stall it? No. It'll charge the second I hesitate. Close and fast. Risky if it has a second bolt. Flank it. He scanned the corridor's jagged edges, noting raised stones and collapsed pillars. Maybe, if I draw it toward the broken arch and kick off the wall. The wolf's claws scraped once against the floor. A warning. Leon narrowed his eyes. No time to overthink. If he wanted to win, he'd have to move. Crack. The wolf vanished. No moved. Leon barely registered it before the claws were there, slashing for his ribs. He twisted instinctively, one dagger rising in a block, just in time. Clang! Sparks scattered from the steel-on claw impact. The force sent Leon sliding backward, boots skidding across stone. It's faster than the last one. Much faster. He landed low, rebalanced, already tracking. Too late. Fwash! Another bolt of light exploded from the creature's horn, forcing Leon to dive behind a broken pillar. The stone ignited with a blast hit, scorched black and cracked. And it's using that magic on a cooldown. 10 seconds? 15. He gritted his teeth, ducked low, and sprang left. The wolf read the move. It was already there. A blur of blue-gray fur, and Leon felt the rush of wind before the claws came again. He blocked the first strike with both daggers crossed, but the second swiped across his side. Gay. Pain bloomed. A shallow slice. The ring of minor regeneration flared warm against his finger. The wound sealed even as he rolled away, biting back a hiss. You're pissing me off. He slashed forward, once, twice, but the wolf shimmered and twisted, a blur of motion and charged muscle. Every time he tried to close distance, it danced out of reach. Every time he tried to bait it, it answered with speed and precision that made normal wolves look like toddlers with dull teeth. It wasn't just a beast. It was a duelist. It's reading me, watching me. It knows how to fight. Another bolt. Leon dove behind a tilted slab of wall, just in time as the blast slammed into the stone like thunder. Debris scattered. The air sizzled. His heart pounded. This is bad. Too fast. Too smart. Too much reach with that magic. He popped the ring again as another shallow cut sealed at his shoulder. His breathing came steady but sharp. If he couldn't outpace it, he had to outthink it. His eyes flicked around. The terrain. Broken tiles. Collapsed columns. Runes scorched into old stone. A narrow gap to the left. Elevated rubble near the rear wall. Terrain's uneven. That's my edge. It's focused on speed, not balance. He darted left suddenly, not toward the wolf, but toward the broken arch where the terrain fractured. He feigned a stumble, just a heartbeat too slow. The wolf took the bait. It lunged, right into the kill zone. Leon spun, his back foot kicking off the uneven slab as he pivoted midair. Both daggers came down in a perfect X-cross slash. 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 Blood sprayed across the stones. One hit caught the wolf's shoulder. The second drove into its flank, but not deep. The beast roared and retaliated, claws raking across Leon's chest. Pain, bright and sharp. His ring activated again, twice, and he grit his teeth against the strain. It burned now. Overuse. But the bleeding stopped. He didn't stop moving. He couldn't. Let's end this. Leon ducked a strike, twisted under a second bolt, and landed a clean stab to the wolf's side. It howled and leapt back, but stumbled. A limp. He'd hit something vital. Now or never. Leon surged forward. 3 quick strikes. One to the hamstring, one to the throat, and the last. He drove into the base of the creature's horn. The blue light sparked, then died. The wolf collapsed with a final, broken growl. Its body twitched once, then went still. Leon stood over it, chest heaving, eyes wide. Blood covered his arms. His cloak had burn marks. The daggers dripped. His ring flared again, numbing a cut at his side. Too many activations in too short time. He felt the ache crawl down his arm, but ignored it. Damn, he breathed. That was a real fight. Leon exhaled slowly and crouched beside the fallen wolf, his muscles tight with fatigue. The ring of minor regeneration dulled the sting of his wounds, but it didn't fix the deeper strain. Rest time. He tapped his soul-bound inventory. Flick! A small silver spoon appeared in his hand. The spoon of infinite soup. The moment he grasped it, a warm, fragrant steam began to rise from the air in front of him. In less than 2 seconds, a wooden bowl materialized, brimming with rich, golden broth, tender meat, and soft, savory vegetables. He didn't hesitate. He sat cross-legged beside the dead wolf, leaned back against a chunk of broken wall, and brought the bowl to his lips. Sip. Still perfect. still better than anything that had ever served. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth settle in his stomach. It was strange. This simple soup, this ridiculous, gotcha-born treasure, had become more comforting than anything else in this world. Even more than Seraphine's arm-crushing hugs. Okay, maybe not more, but close. His gaze drifted toward the corridor where he'd come from, blood still glistening faintly on the stones. The horned wolf's corpse lay still, and beyond it, silence. Leon tightened his grip on the bowl. This dungeon is not what she said it would be. He wasn't angry, just unsettled. Seraphine had said he'd breeze through it, that his preparation put him far above the bar, that this was just a formality. But that last fight, that was no formality. That wolf was an elite variant, maybe not a boss, and if more like it showed up, this place wasn't meant for beginners. Not anymore. Something's off, he muttered. He sipped the soup again, slower this time. If this is a trial dungeon, then the difficulty was supposed to be balanced around young first-timers. Cores to gather, combat to gauge, some pressure, but nothing lethal. This was real. He let his head rest lightly against the stone behind him. And if this place is warping, then I'm either the cause or the target. Either way, there was no going back now. He glanced down at the spoon in his hand. Thanks for keeping me going, buddy. The soup bowl vanished the moment he set it aside, absorbed back into his soul space like it had never been there. He stood slowly, rolled his shoulders, checked his daggers. His body ached. His mind was sharp, and his eyes were cold. Break time's over. Leon moved forward, slower this time. Every step was deliberate. Every corner cleared twice. His cloak draped around him once more, and though it offered no sound or scent concealment, it gave him just enough edge to slip between shadows. Then he saw them. Bodies. Not one, not two, 5, scattered across a widened hallway, blood still wet beneath them. A group. He crouched beside the nearest. They weren't torn apart like the earlier victims. No savage claw marks or missing limbs. They were just dead. Fast. Precise. Throats slashed. One had a burned hole through his chest, charred edges still smoking. Leon's expression darkened. This wasn't a struggle. It was a massacre. He stood, eyes sweeping across the rest. Weapons drawn, postures mid-defensive, faces locked in surprise. They didn't expect what hit them. His grip on his daggers tightened as a single thought passed through his mind. They were stronger than me in terms of physical strength. Older, equipped, and they died anyway. He checked the surrounding floor for tracks, blood smears, claw patterns, even faint scuffs in the dust. What he found made his heart beat faster. Paw prints, faint scorch marks, some too large for a regular wolf. He straightened slowly. The deeper I go, the worse it gets. No voice answered him, only silence. But it was the kind of silence that felt heavy, predatory, like the dungeon itself was watching now. He stepped over the bodies, eyes sharp, feet light. There was no time to mourn, only time to survive. The blood was still fresh. Leon crouched beside the 5th body, fingertips brushing the blackened edge of a deep scorch mark across the man's chest. One hit, no scream, no struggle. He stood slowly, eyes following the trail. Char paw prints, big ones. Each indentation in the dust was deeper, wider than anything he'd seen so far. Even the blue-horned variant hadn't left a trail like this. Whatever made these, it wasn't just bigger. It was heavier, hotter, meaner, and it had taken out 5 armed candidates like they were scarecrows. This wasn't a pack, just one monster, fire-aligned, strong enough to kill before his second breath. And I'm alone. For the first time since stepping into this dungeon, Leon hesitated, not in his feet, but in his chest. The kind of stillness that came when instinct stopped whispering and started screaming. I might not win this one. He didn't say it with fear, just fact. Then, a low, distant growl, not from behind. Ahead, already. He moved, instinct driving him to melt into the shadows, cloak fluttering around him. He took the left corridor, slipping behind a thick outcrop of stone, breath slow and shallow. And then he saw it. Red horn, molten eyes. The wolf was massive. easily twice the size of the lightning variant. Muscles packed under ember-tipped fur, every breath steaming with heat. Flames danced faintly around its paws, leaving scorched prints wherever it stepped. Its horn glowed a deep crimson, like molten metal before the forge strike. It turned, nose twitching, and looked directly at him. No, not at me. At my scent. Leon ran. He didn't think, just pivoted, cloak snapping behind him, feet gliding over stone as he darted back through the corridor at full speed. But it wasn't enough. Boom! The ground shook. The wolf had leapt, cleared 20 feet in a blink. Leon felt the heat before the sound caught up, and when he glanced back, it was already there. Snarling, charging. He didn't have a choice. He skidded sideways, dove through a collapsed stone arch, and drew both daggers in one clean motion. All right, he muttered, chest rising and falling. Let's dance. The wolf didn't wait. It charged with fire underfoot, horn glowing like a burning blade. The first clash hit like a siege ram. Steel met flame. Leon was launched backward, barely managing to twist mid-air and land in a crouch. His boots skidded against molten slick stone, and smoke curled from the hem of his cloak. This fight was different. The blue one had been fast. But this was brutal. Leon struck low. Quick slice to the ankle. Blocked. The wolf spun, flames bursting from its side. He barely rolled clear. The second wave came faster. A horn swipe dodged, claws raking wide, parried. But the air was fire, and the room was shrinking. Sweat poured down Leon's back. His ring flared, once, twice, as new burns seared across his arms. One wound refused to close completely. Too deep, too hot. Even his treasure was starting to buckle. Shit, I'm not healing fast enough. One mistake, and I'm cooked. But he didn't stop. He circled, waited, watched. There, a ridge. A broken platform. Jagged above. Slippery below. A plan formed. Risky, but was all he had. Leon baited the wolf, faked a limp, slowed his pace. The beast took it. It lunged. He leapt backward, landing on a raised platform. It climbed up, unstable footing, and just as it launched to strike, he dashed to the side. Crack! The platform gave way. The wolf dropped a foot, and in that exact moment, Leon drove both daggers toward its heart. Slash! The strike connected. Deep. Final. But the wolf howled, not in pain but warning. Flames burst from its core, a detonation of raw mana that caught Leon midair and threw him like a rag doll across the chamber. He crashed into a wall. Hard. Stone cracked. Burns seared across his ribs and arms. His daggers clattered beside him, and darkness nipped at the edge of his vision. He wasn't unconscious, but he was close. The fight was still on, but he was out of time. Smoke curled off his body. Ash clung to his skin. The impact had split the stone behind him, but I'm still breathing. Leon groaned as he pushed himself off the stone, body trembling, cloak half charred but still intact. His arms ached. Burns stung. The air felt like breathing smoke. But he was alive. Barely. The cloak, it ate most of the blast. If I didn't have it. He didn't finish the thought. He reached for his daggers. One still gripped tight, the other a foot away, and staggered toward the collapsed beast. The red-horned wolf lay in a pool of scorched blood, chest barely rising. Not dead. Not yet. Leon grit his teeth, wiped sweat from his brow, and forced his legs to move. I'm ending this. His dagger rose. Thud. A sound. Distant. Sharp. No. Not one. Many. The air shifted. A low rumble rolled through the dungeon floor like thunder on the ceiling of hell. Leon froze. Then he heard it. Fast, synchronized footsteps, too many for comfort and too light to be human. That howl. It wasn't a warning. It was a call. He turned. From the far tunnel, shadows streaked forward. 5 wolves, each smaller than the red-horned one, but just as deadly in their own right. Lightning licked around their paws. Their horns sparkled with blue-white energy. Not fire. Lightning. Not just variants. Kill squad. Leon's heart dropped, and his instinct screamed. If they surround me, I'm dead. No posturing. No theatrics. Just primal, pure fear. Nope. He ran, not because he wanted to, but because this wasn't a fight. This was execution. The wolves were fast, too fast. Their paws barely touched the stone, arcs of lightning flashing behind them like streaks from a storm cloud. They blurred through the dungeon, splitting off, trying to flank. Leon didn't bother with stealth. He didn't care about silence. He threw his cloak in his storage, forced his burning legs to sprint harder. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't think. Then his eyes caught it. A crack in the wall. A jagged seam just beneath a collapsed statue. Too narrow for normal sight, but Leon's gaze was sharp, trained. He darted toward it, kicked aside loose rubble, and slammed his shoulder against the stone. It gave way. A hidden gap. No time to hesitate. Leon slipped inside and instantly lost footing. The ground vanished. He tumbled downward, down a narrow stone chute, slick with dust and old magic. No light, no handholds, just a sloped descent that stole all control. Shit. The sound of the wolves above faded, and Leon kept falling, arms tucked in, daggers clenched tight as the dark swallowed him whole. But in the distance, a glow. Not sunlight, not fire. A cold, faint blue. What the hell? He didn't have time to question, only to brace. Whatever lay below. He just hoped it wasn't worse than what was hunting him now. Leon hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his body, rattling his bones and knocking the breath from his lungs. A groan slipped out as he rolled to the side, coughing once before forcing himself onto his knees. Every part of him ached, every joint screaming in protest, but the pain quickly gave way to something worse, an unnatural stillness and silence that pressed down on him like a weight. Arr! Thud! A painful cry couldn't help but escape from his mouth. He straightened slowly and looked around, realizing this wasn't part of the cave or the dungeon. The place was wrong. The stone beneath his hands was smooth and cold, too perfect to be natural. The walls were straight, clean, symmetrical, almost sterile in their design. Blue torches floated in the air without support, frozen mid-flicker as if time itself refused to move here. Black tapestries stretched across the walls, each one marked with twisted art and symbols that seemed to scream without sound, their designs warped and faces within them half-human and wholly in agony. And then he saw it, the throne. It rose from a floor like a jagged wound, made of bone, black iron, and obsidian, every edge crafted to hurt. And seated on it, Leon stopped breathing. Something was there, human in shape, but clearly not human. Its posture was relaxed, legs crossed, back against the throne like it was lounging, but its presence made Leon's skin crawl. Its body looked sculpted from obsidian and fractured glass, light flickering inside the cracks of its skin. The face was symmetrical and beautiful in a way that felt wrong. Too sharp, too perfect, and it was smiling. Not warmly, just watching, like it had been waiting for him. Leon stood frozen, unable to speak or move. He felt the creature's gaze settle on him, heavy and precise, as if it were dissecting him in its mind. A massive hammer leaned against the side of the throne, tall as Leon himself, its edges warped and jagged as if shaped by fire and fury. It gave off a faint pulse, slow and steady, like a second heartbeat in the room. Thump! Thump! Leon felt it press against his chest, heavy and suffocating, a primal warning that made his instincts scream. His fingers gripped the hilts of his daggers, but even as he held them, they felt like toys, useless against something like this. If he had known what was at the end of that hidden passage, he never would have jumped. There were no exits here. No doors, no tunnels, no escape. Just him, the throne, and the creature watching him in silence. Still smiling. It hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but Leon could feel its focus on him like a blade at his throat. It wasn't a room for fighting. It was a room for dying. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. And even if he had a choice, he wasn't sure he could make his legs work. This wasn't fear he could shake off. It was deep, cold, and familiar. The kind he hadn't felt since the day he died. He knew he couldn't win. The odds were meaningless. But still his body moved, one step then another, until he stood upright, knees stiff, blades drawn. He couldn't run, so he'd fight. It didn't matter how hopeless it was. He had to try. He had to survive. Even if it meant gambling everything on a suicide play, he had to act. Then, without sound or warning, the creature vanished. It didn't blink, didn't shift, just disappeared. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. The hammer still leaned against the throne, untouched. But the creature, gone. Leon hadn't looked away. He hadn't blinked. It didn't dash or teleport. It simply ceased to exist in front of him. And yet, the pressure in the room didn't lift. It was still here, somewhere, watching, hiding in plain sight. And for the first time in his life, more than any hunger or pain he had endured, Leon didn't want to be seen. Not like this. Not by whatever that thing was. But it was already too late. It had noticed him, and whatever was about to happen, it had already begun. The first strike didn't come with sound. It came with pain. Crack. Something hit him from the side with the weight of a falling mountain, and a sickening crunch echoed in his ribs. His lungs emptied in a broken gasp as he flew through the air, crashing into the wall with a force that cracked stone. Boom! Blood burst from his mouth as his back slammed into obsidian, his body folding and falling like a shattered puppet. Thud! He couldn't breathe. His right side felt like it didn't exist anymore. Not cut off, just broken. Nerves scrambled, bones crushed, and still he lived. Why? Why wasn't he dead yet? His eyes, blurred with red, caught moving again, no teleport, just raw speed. The creature was crouched beside him, head tilted like it found him amusing. It reached out, took him by the leg, and slammed him into the floor. Smash! Then again. Smash! And again. Smash! Over and over. The pain lost shape, becoming one endless wave of agony. He couldn't scream. His lungs were wrecked. Then it stopped. The creature let go, dropped him without thought, and walked off like it was bored. Clack, clack. His limbs twitched where they lay, bent in ways they shouldn't bend. One hand wouldn't close. His ankle throbbed in the wrong direction, and it still wasn't done. The pain was too much to bear. He felt like he could cry at any moment, but he held it in. The creature turned and came back. It didn't hit him hard, just rolled him over with a light kick. Thump! He crashed into a nearby pillar, coughed more blood, and lost a few teeth in the process. Clink! The creature crouched again, looked at him, and without opening its mouth, it only growled a bit, but it felt like his mind would feel a word form that would struck like a hammer. Pathetic. His heart slowed. His vision blurred. He was dying, and the creature didn't care. It paced around him like a child circling a broken toy, hurting him just enough to keep him conscious, just enough to make him feel it all. The blows weren't random. They were deliberate, methodical, cruel. It wasn't trying to kill him. It was trying to erase him one piece at a time. One arm hung dead. The other was crushed. His legs wouldn't move. His head was too heavy. Only his eyes worked, and they locked on the throne. The creature had returned to it, legs folded, posture elegant, as though nothing had happened. It leaned back, its shape blending into the jagged throne, the blue flames casting sharp shadows across its form. Then it smiled again, calm and distant, its gaze fixed on Leon like a spectator watching the final moments of a dying show. Leon stared back. No screaming, no words, just broken breathing. H-H-H-H, 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 and one thought that rose above the pain. He didn't want to die like this. Not as a toy, not as a victim. Leon lay broken, bones shattered, blood everywhere, breath shallow and ragged. The thrown creature hadn't moved after nearly breaking every bone in his body and leaving him on the verge of dying. It didn't need to. It had already won. His vision dimmed again. The edges went dark, flickering in and out like a dying lantern. His body screamed. His mind worse. But he hadn't passed out. Not yet, because something inside him refused. Something stupid, stubborn, something human. His thoughts, scattered and cracked, reached for the one thing he hadn't let himself think about until now. Her, Seraphine, that overpowered lunatic in uniform with her perfect footwork, cutting glares, and those God's damned hugs. The ones that squeezed the air from his lungs like a python trying to bond with dinner. She always caught him off guard. Mid-training, mid-sentence, mid-anything. He complained. So many times. Stop hugging me like I'm a pillow with trauma. You do not get to affection yeet me, woman. And she just laughed. Or squeezed harder. Back then, it was annoying, smothering, embarrassing. But now the thought of never feeling one of those bone-crushing hugs again, it terrified him. What if I die here? What if I never see her again? No more lessons. No more dumb smirks. No more idiotically strong arms dragging me into a hug I pretend to hate. No more her. The thought sliced deeper than any claw. You'd be mad if I gave up now, wouldn't you? You'd be pissed I didn't at least punch the bastard once before going out. More importantly, you would be sad if I died here. He would everything he can to survive. A bitter breath left his cracked lips. I'm not done yet, he rasped. Even if everything was broken, even if he had nothing left. He reached inward, past the pain, past the fear, to his last treasure, the orb of all elemental affinity. He summoned it from his soul space with a whisper of will. It hovered just above his trembling palm, smooth, pristine, and utterly unbothered. A perfect divine joke. All light, no substance, and still silent. The ring of minor regeneration pulsed faintly on his finger, trying to close wounds that wouldn't close anymore. It was like pouring water on a wildfire. Not enough. Not even close. Leon's grip on the orb trembled. I need your power, he whispered, blood slipping past his lips. I need a miracle. The orb did not respond. Not even a flicker. Merge with me, he rasped. Do something. Still nothing. Just that soft, calm glow. Like it was watching. Judging. You smug, floating fraud. Rage stirred in his chest. He coughed once, hard, and pain stabbed deep. GHHK. Then, loud enough for the entire chamber to echo, he screamed, You're nothing but a worthless treasure. The words tore out raw, wet, and furious. You sit there glowing like a divine artifact, like you mean something, but you've done nothing. The orb pulsed, dimly, but he wasn't done. I was the one who was going to give you meaning. His voice cracked. Blood spilled. His teeth clenched. I was the one who was going to make you more than just a showpiece. He glared through the pain, through the haze, through the fear, through the finality. What meaning is there in a treasure that never fights? The orb pulsed again, faintly. He lifted it toward his chest with the last ounce of strength he had left. Become mine. The words were a vow. Merge with me. His voice dropped, dark and shaking. Fight with me. Then, we will make the world tremble. Boom. Light. Blinding. Blazing. Consuming. The orb erupted in a violent explosion of energy, pure mana, pure heat, pure will. The chamber trembled. The monster paused, and Leon burned. The orb didn't shatter. It merged into his chest, into his soul, into his everything. His body arched, veins glowing, bones creaking, heart roaring as the elemental essence fused into him like molten fire threading into steel. Crack! Torches shattered, walls rippled, and Leon couldn't hear anything, couldn't see beyond the wall of light. The outside world, the dungeon, the throne, the monster was gone. Only the sphere remained, a shell of living mana, ever shifting, ever surging, had fully enveloped him, its surface rippling with color like oil across flame. Red, blue, green, silver, elements coiled and tangled, crashing together in silent chaos. The air inside shimmered, thick with energy, so dense it felt like he was breathing liquid fire. And at the center of it all, him, Leon, floated inches above the ground, suspended by something that wasn't gravity. His eyes were open, but he saw nothing but light. His ears heard no sound, not even his own breath. Silence, absolute, crushing, a terrifying kind of stillness. Where am I? The question echoed inside his own skull, but no answer came. Because nothing else existed here. No creature, no dungeon, no pain from before. Just this, the transformation. It wasn't gentle. It was agony, relentless and raw. The orb of all elemental affinity wasn't merging with him. It was rewriting him from the inside out. He could feel it in his marrow, in his spine, in the frayed edges of his soul. His muscles spasmed as threads of mana laced through them, pulling apart fibers and rebuilding them stronger, denser, more attuned. His bones creaked, snapped, reformed. Veins surged with elemental current. Heat, ice, static, stone, his body cycling through all at once, burning and freezing and electrifying and grounding. It didn't stop, not for breath, not for mercy. His skin glowed from within, threads of colored light chasing under the surface like veins turned to rivers. His mind strained to hold together. He bit down on nothing, jaw clenched, breath frozen, and fought to stay conscious. To not let go, because if I pass out, if I let go for even a second, I won't wake up again. And so he endured, screaming silently in a world that couldn't hear him. This pain, this isn't punishment. This is evolution. And still, no glimpse of the outside. No way to know what moved just beyond the sphere. No sound. No pressure. No clue. The cocoon had become everything. A barrier. A crucible. A cage. And all Leon could do was survive what came next. Or die trying. Outside the sphere, the throne stood empty. The creature had vanished. No sound. No warning. No blur of motion. One moment it was seated, legs crossed, smiling lazily. The next it was gone. Not even the air stirred in its absence. But then, a hum, low, bone deep, it reappeared, standing. The throne room shook. Not from Leon, not from the sphere, but from the force of the hammer crashing down. Boom! Stone cracked. Air ruptured. Mana shrieked as the obsidian weapon struck the glowing cocoon of elemental energy. And nothing. No dent. No ripple. No response. The sphere remained still, floating just inches above the floor, untouchable. A sealed world of pure, roiling elemental chaos. Not one affinity, but all. Fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, ice, light, shadow, and others, each threaded into the shell like living veins. Ever shifting, ever surging, controlled only by the soul of the one inside it. Inside it, Leon floated, unaware, unhearing, unseeing, unfeeling to anything beyond his agony. His body burned and reformed. Muscles shredded and reknit. Bones cracked, fused, and reshaped under divine pressure. But he felt nothing of the blow outside. Not the hammer. Not the impact. Not the fury. Just pain and change. Outside, the creature's brow twitched. Once, then vanished behind a blank mask of obsidian once more. It stepped back, only a pace, and shifted its stance again. This time it wasn't testing. It was committing. The air thickened. The torchlight flickered, then recoiled. Its arms bulged with pressure, carved limbs flexing under condensed force. Every sharp ridge of its body glowed faintly now, like cracks before eruption. And a hammer? It lit. A vein of molten red crawled along its edges, blooming to life in runes older than the dungeon itself. Heat radiated from it now, so thick the very ground beneath the creature's feet bubbled and cracked. One breath. Then, boom! The second strike fell like divine judgment. The room convulsed. Shards of obsidian tile blasted out from beneath the sphere. The throne itself groaned against the shockwave. Dust rolled. Silence followed. And when the air cleared, the sphere still hovered. Untouched. Not a crack. Not a shimmer. Not a sound from within. The creature stared at it. Expression unreadable. Then, slowly it straightened, turned, and walked back toward the throne. Its hammer dragged behind it, carving a molten groove across the floor as it moved. It sat once more, legs crossing, posture relaxed, but the eyes never moved. Still locked on the sphere. Still waiting. Because it understood something now. This wasn't over. Not yet. It was only the calm before the storm. Inside the sphere, time didn't move. Only pain did. Leon wasn't just evolving. He was being unmade, piece by piece, cell by cell, and rebuilt into something the world had no name for yet. Elemental energies coursed through him, but it wasn't just fire and lightning. Fire blistered his nerves. Ice froze his lungs. Lightning danced in his muscles, forcing spasms he couldn't control. Earth pressed down like a mountain, trying to crush him into obedience. Wind shredded him from the inside. Water drowned him in pressure. Light seared. Shadow clawed. Gravity bent his spine inward. Sound echoed through his bones like thunder, trapped in marrow. Metal, space, time, mist, blood. He couldn't name them all, but they were there, and they hurt. Every one carved its mark into him. Muscles snapped and reformed tighter. Bones shattered, regrew harder. Organs burned, froze, twisted, realigned. His senses blurred. Reality stretched. His heartbeat sounded like an orchestra of crashing worlds. He held on. Barely. This isn't awakening. This is being forged. And then, like a breath after drowning, stillness. The storm subsided. The energy around him calmed into an ordered swirl, like a galaxy forming around a star. But the cocoon remained, a radiant shell of compressed mana still shielding him from the outside world. Colors danced along its surface. The walls rippled like oil on glass, hiding everything beyond. Then, a soundless chime. A screen appeared. Clear, blue, weightless, floating before him like it had always been waiting. Connection established. Cosmic system. Identifier. Leon. Synchronization. 100%. Welcome, Seeker. His eyes widened, heart thudding. Not a local system. Not regional. Cosmic. Universal. Something so much bigger than the trials of one continent. Is this the system Master talked about? Or something beyond? He tried to read more, tried to ask what he had become, but no further data came. Not yet. The system acknowledged him, and now watched, waiting for him to stand, waiting for what came next. Leon exhaled shakily. Blood still clung to his lips. His body ached in places he didn't even know could ache. But he was standing, inside the cocoon, alive, changed, seen. What am I now? What did I just become? And just outside the cocoon, something waited with a hammer, something ready to test the answer. Inside the cocoon, the light dimmed just enough for Leon to finally see himself. And what he saw didn't look like a 10-year-old anymore. He was still him, still Leon, but different, taller, leaner, stronger. His body had been rebuilt, not with bulk, but with purpose. Every inch of him felt like it had been tempered like a blade. No wasted mass, no weakness, just raw, balanced potential. His muscles tensed under new skin that shimmered faintly in the elemental glow, like threads of magic had stitched him together from inside out. His hair had grown too, once short and boyish, now long, silver-white strands that fell just past his shoulders. They caught the shifting light of the cocoon like flowing steel. Leon stared at his hand, then slowly curled it into a fist. Crack, power pulsed through his knuckles. Not the borrowed kind, not the subtle kind. His, pure and whole. His lips parted, and he breathed in, and that was when he felt it. Not just his body, not just his strength, the world. He could feel the elements around him. Not faint whispers, but clear, distinct presences. Fire like a heartbeat in the air. Wind like laughter circling his skin. Earth cold and grounding. Water distant but calm. Lightning coiled and hungry. Even stranger ones, echoes of metal, of shadow, of heatless light. It was like discovering color after living in grayscale. And inside him, mana, not drifting in the air, not leaking from a treasure, but flowing, real. This is what it feels like. This is what I've been waiting for. Mana filled every inch of him, warm, reactive, alive. For the first time since arriving in this world, Leon had mana of his own. Not a cheat, not a crutch. And now, he was ready. The odd didn't last, because the next thing Leon noticed was he was completely naked. He looked down slowly. You got to be kidding me. The moment of enlightenment shattered like cheap glass. He was standing stark naked inside the glowing cocoon. Hair flowing like a mythical swordsman. Muscles refined by cosmic torture. And zero clothes. Of course the divine orb would forget modesty. Cosmic glow stick of betrayal. He spun around, half expecting to find at least his daggers lying nearby. Nothing. Panic prickled up his spine. Wait, where's my stuff? His hands flicked instinctively toward his soul space. calling forth the inventory bound to his soul. Ping! The screen blinked open. All 7 treasures, intact. The daggers, the cloak, the boots, the soup spoon, the ring, the hourglass, even the cursedly silent blade. All there along with his other items, like the clothes and armor he was wearing. He exhaled hard. Okay. Crisis averted. He flicked his fingers and summoned a pair of plain underclothes from the corner of the inventory. No one else could see him in here, but still, there were limits. He tugged them on quickly, then paused. He summoned the light armor next. Stared at it. Held it up. Yeah, that's not a chest plate anymore. That's a crop top. With a sigh, he banished the armor and instead pulled out the cloak of mild invisibility, tossing it over his shoulders. It draped a little better now, still roomy but passable, like some rogue mage hybrid who couldn't afford full clothes. Lastly, he wore his comfortable boots. Great. I look like I escaped from both a training arc and a laundry basket. But at least he was covered. His gaze turned back to the glowing cocoon around him. Still intact. Still humming. Almost done. He adjusted the cloak, just to feel grounded, and let his breathing steady. Now clothed, armed, connected to the elements. And for the first time since entering this trial, in control. Leon didn't move toward the edge. Didn't raise a hand. Didn't even consider stepping out. The cocoon still pulsed around him, alive, luminous, thrumming with elemental force. But outside, there was nothing. No pressure. No sound. No movement. Stillness. Too quiet. Which meant only one thing. It can't touch me in here. The monster hadn't made another move. No attacks. No noise. No hammer swinging into the barrier. It was waiting. Patient. Focused. Watching. Leon's eyes narrowed. You already tried, didn't you? From the silence, from the sheer stillness, he could tell. That thing had attacked the cocoon while he was out cold. Maybe once. Maybe multiple times. But it had failed. It couldn't get in. And he could get out. Easily. The moment his hand brushed the surface, he knew. He could unseal the mana shell with a thought, shatter it with a twitch. It wasn't restraining him anymore. It was protecting him. And that made him pause. Because the memory of pain was still too sharp. Just because I'm stronger doesn't mean I'll win. He remembered it perfectly. Every blow, every crack, every helpless moment. That creature had broken him like glass, and barely tried doing it. Even now, with his blood humming, mana roaring through his veins like a storm he could barely contain, Leon didn't feel overconfident. He felt sober, clear. You don't get to be stupid just because you leveled up. So he sat, cross-legged, calm, alert, and focused inward. Mana. He could feel it now. Finally, after all these years, actual mana pulsing inside his core like a newborn sun. Elemental threads danced in his blood. Fire, water, lightning, wind, earth, light, shadow. Even stranger forces he couldn't yet name. And yet, he didn't know how to use it. Not properly. This is no time to strut around glowing like a dumb anime protagonist. His master, Seraphine, always ended their spars with a short burst of mana-enhanced strikes. A final flurry of motion that made her feel like a living storm, her body burning with clean power. He'd always wanted to match that. Now, he had mana. He just didn't have control. Then that's what I need. Before anything else. He exhaled. I need to learn how to enhance my body, he whispered to himself. And if I can maybe control one or two elements well enough to attack and defend. He stared at his hands, stronger now, steadier. No tremble, no cracks, just untapped potential. I'm not going out there until I can weaponize it. He wasn't dumb. He wasn't cocky. He was Leon. And this time, he would be ready. Leon exhaled slowly, eyes still locked on the interior of the cocoon. Then he stood. His mana surged, steady and pulsing now, like a heartbeat layered beneath his own. It wasn't raw anymore. It was his. But power without control was just chaos. If I'm going to use this, I need to sharpen it, direct it. He already knew what to do. The dimensional hourglass. It was time to disappear from a world, just for a while. Train, test, prepare. But first, he needed to choose. Which elements to focus on? Ice. That came first. Before, He hadn't been able to sense it, only the heat, only the flame. But now, from the faint residual echo still in the air, he could feel the monster's affinity clearly. Fire, twisted and primal, woven into its body like a second skeleton. So Leon picked the obvious counter. If fire burned, he'd freeze it. Ice can slow, restrain, break, attack. He didn't need flash. He needed control. And for the second, he hesitated, thought about the blur of motion that had ended with him nearly splattered against a wall. Wind. The choice was obvious. It wasn't just about matching the monster's speed. It was about exceeding it. He wouldn't be outpaced again. Ever. Ice and wind. Cold precision and speed. That was his answer. Let's get to work, he murmured, summoning the dimensional hourglass from his soul space. It shimmered into view, unseen by the world outside, then pulsed once. The cocoon didn't resist. In a breath, Leon's consciousness vanished, and he remained seated in the cocoon, still pulsing in his position. Silent, unbroken, but no longer dormant, because inside the hourglass, time was about to bend. Leon stood at the center of the hourglass world, bare feet pressing into unmoving stone. Everything here was still. No sound, no scent, no shift in light. Just endless space, mana-dense air, and time his time. He started with the basics. Mana control. No flashy spells. No attacks. Just enhancement. He wanted what Seraphine had. When she blurred between strikes, moved like her body didn't obey the same laws of weight or resistance. He wanted to reinforce his muscles, accelerate reaction, numb pain, sharpen reflex. So he trained. Every second, every breath. No food, no sleep, no rest. Not because he didn't need them, because in here, they didn't exist. He pushed mana through his limbs, forcing it into muscle, bone, blood. At first, it scattered, bled off like steam. His form flickered, strength surged, then dipped, movements clumsy and inconsistent. But he kept going, over and over and over. 2 weeks passed inside the hourglass, or maybe longer. He didn't count the days, only failures, and they were many, until a familiar chime echoed in his head. A blue screen flickered open before him. Technique acquired. Mana body enhancement. Novice rank. Leon exhaled, wiping phantom sweat from his brow. Not because he was tired, but because his patience was. Novice, he muttered. He flexed his arms, called mana, through his limbs, and enhanced again. It worked. Sort of. His movements were sharper, his grip tighter, his balance slightly elevated. But the flow was wasteful, inefficient. Too much mana for too little result. This is garbage. This wouldn't survive one clash with that thing outside. He clenched his fists. Not enough. He wasn't here for beginner tricks. He was here to win. So he stepped back, refocused, and kept going. Because perfection wasn't optional anymore. He didn't stop. Not after 2 weeks. Not even after the pain grew worse. He kept going for 2 more months. Time had no meaning inside the hourglass, but he counted the suffering. His mana-enhanced movements sharpened day by day, but mastery didn't come cheap. Not even close. More than once, he overloaded his limbs. Pushed too hard. His right arm exploded once, ripped apart from elbow to shoulder as raw mana burst through unstable channels. He hit the ground, screaming, bone jutting through charred skin. But then it reformed. His body, now bonded with the orb, healed. Not like the ring's slow regeneration. This was deeper. Cellular. Elemental. As if the world refused to let him break. And he took that mercy, that gift, and fed it back in a grind. Over and over again. Until finally, technique rank up, mana body enhancement, apprentice rank achieved. He opened his eyes and moved. The air blurred around him. His body left afterimages even without pushing speed. He punched once. Boom. The air cracked. Not with force. With sheer sharpness. Like his fist had sliced it apart. Power buzzed beneath his skin, humming like a current that finally had somewhere to go. He grinned. Not wide. Just enough to show satisfaction. Stronger. But not enough. He looked at his hands. Steady, but it still wasn't enough. Not yet. Not for that thing waiting outside. Leon didn't want to walk out and struggle. He didn't want a desperate win. A lucky strike. A narrow escape. He wanted to crush it. Flatten it. Grind it into the stone like a bug that should have never dared to lift its gaze. To do that, he needed absolute confidence. He stared at his hands again, the soft hum of mana beneath his skin, and clenched them until the glow sharpened. I'm not done. His voice echoed faintly in the timeless space. So he went back to it. Again, again, again. Every move analyzed. Every failure dissected. Every mistake burned into memory and then burned away. Sometimes his legs snapped mid-kick. Sometimes his spine cracked under pressure. Sometimes he hit the wall hard enough to cough blood. But he never stopped. He wasn't chasing strength anymore. He was forging dominance. And no matter how many times he failed, he got up, he corrected, he continued. Finally, after another 6 months of brutal, relentless, mind-breaking training, the blue screen appeared again. Mana body enhancement technique. Rank up, adept achieved. Leon didn't react at first. He just stared at the words, chest rising slowly with a breath that felt different, deeper, controlled, powerful. Then he moved, and the air split. Not just a buzz, not just a ripple. It shuddered. He stepped forward again, and his entire body blurred, faster than sight, smoother than thought. Each strike, each motion, came with a clarity he hadn't known he was missing. No hesitation, no waste, no resistance. He wasn't just strong now, he was efficient. Every drop of mana answered his will. It surged when called. It moved when pushed. And it stayed when held. This was what control felt like. This was the start of mastery. Leon looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers slowly. The difference was unreal. Strength, several times what it had been. Speed, blinding. Durability, unshakable. And, most importantly, he wasn't bleeding anymore. No cracks, no pain, no backlash. He was ready, or getting close. He hadn't even touched magic casting yet. But for the first time since entering the cocoon, he felt confident. But as the high settled and the awe faded into analysis, Leon frowned. He tested his reserves again, measured the flow, calculated the drain, and he realized something important. He didn't have much mana. The enhancement technique was powerful, absolutely, but it burned through mana like wildfire through dry leaves. Even now, at adept rank, he could only sustain the enhanced state for about 20 minutes at most. Just 20. Back when he was a novice, it had barely been 5. At apprentice, he'd managed 10, just enough to feel useful. But now, even with all the strength, speed, and control, it had a time limit. A very real one. He sighed and let the technique fade. The aura around him dimmed, his muscles cooled, and the sharp hum in the air vanished. This isn't a finish line. It's a milestone. And if he wanted to crush that monster, not just survive, not just outlast, he'd need more. Much more. With strength and speed secured, it was time. Elemental control. Leon focused first on ice. It felt cold, but not distant. Sharp, but not cruel. Precise. Controlled. Ruthless when it needed to be. He liked it immediately. And once he started training, he couldn't stop. It took him 4 months. 4 months of constant shaping, refining, breaking down, rebuilding, but eventually it clicked. There was no system message this time. No glowing screen. No cosmic fanfare. Just results. He could now form spears, bullets, even walls of jagged frost. All at will. If he had mana, he could make it. And that was enough. Then came the wind. Not just for ranged spells, though he learned a few, but for speed, agility, control. He wove it through his legs like threads, wrapped it across his back, used it to boost dashes, to pivot in midair, to glide across the stone like he had wings. He even mastered a technique he'd only theorized before. Wind-coated blades. A dense sheath of whirling air wrapped around his daggers, silent, invisible, and devastating. It sharpened the edge, increased the force, made every strike faster, deeper, harder to block. Because deep down, he knew his daggers wouldn't be enough. Not against that monster. Not alone. But now, Now, they were coated in wind so tight, they hummed in his grip like live wires. Now they could cut deeper. Now, they had a chance. But for the first time, he could see the path forward. He was ready. Not just strong, not just fast, confident. Leon stood at the heart of the cocoon, surrounded by silence, power thrumming just beneath his skin like a storm waiting to detonate. For half a day, real-time or otherwise, inside the space for more than a year, this space had been his crucible, his forge, his sanctuary, and now it was time to leave it behind. His mind slipped free from the suspended flow of the dimensional hourglass. His consciousness realigned, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, his eyes opened. They glowed mysteriously, not just light reflecting, but the light emanating, as if his soul was pressing out through his gaze. Calmly, Leon stepped forward. No pain, no hesitation, just strength. He raised his right hand and pressed it lightly against the inner wall of the sphere. The vibrant, roiling surface of living mana that had protected him, remade him, and birthed him anew. He closed his eyes for a moment. Thank you. No words spoken aloud. Just a thought. Quiet, earnest, real. He hadn't known the sphere could understand, but it did. Because the moment that silent gratitude passed through his soul, the surface responded. A hum. Gentle. Resonant. Then he pushed. Just a soft nudge. No force. No strain. And the cocoon unraveled. But it didn't shatter. It didn't collapse or burst like glass. It dissolved. A magnificent spiral of prismatic mana. Colors he knew, and some he didn't. Unwound from the surface, lifting into the air in threads and swirls of light. They danced. Not chaotically, but with purpose. Like they were alive. Like they were celebrating. And then, like comets pulled into gravity, every strand of that light arced inward. Toward him, Leon didn't move. He just stood there, eyes wide, breath still, as the streams of radiant mana plunged in his chest, straight into the core that now pulsed within him. It wasn't physical, not quite, but it was real. A crystalline sphere of bound energy nested deep inside him, forged by his bond with the orb of all elemental affinity. It had been glowing before, but now it ignited. The cocoon's parting gift didn't just settle into it, it supercharged it. The moment the final tendrils vanished beneath his skin, the core expanded, not in shape, but in density. The light grew brighter, deeper, sharper. The swirl of elemental affinities around it intensified. Fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, ice, and more. Dozens of threads, dozens of truths, all feeding into him. The chamber trembled, not violently, but like it recognized what now stood in the center. A convergence. Not just a boy, not just a fighter, but something new. And Leon? He took a single breath. Steady, complete. Then opened his hands. Power hummed along his fingertips. Mana curled at his back like a second cloak. The air bent slightly around him, responding to his presence. He didn't speak, didn't smile, didn't move yet. But in that moment, something else stirred, the creature on the throne. Unseen by Leon, it had tried many times to break that cocoon. With its hammer, with fire, with force that would have turned castles to rubble. All of it had failed. It hadn't understood why. But now, watching the light fade into Leon's form, watching the way the room now bent around him, it began to understand. And it stood. Leon exhaled slowly, gaze fixed on his trembling hand. It wasn't trembling from fear. Not anymore. It shook because something inside him was buzzing, raw, electric, alive. Mana, but not like before. Not the flickering candlelight of survival. Not the shallow pool he'd learned to conserve drop by drop. This was a sea, a storm. No, a world. The moment the cocoon had merged with the core inside him, something fundamental had changed. He could feel the threads now, of ice, wind, flame, stone, lightning, shadow, and more, woven through his very blood. He didn't just hold mana. He was linked to it, as if the elements themselves whispered beneath his skin, waiting for his call. I'm not going to run out of mana anymore. His fingers curled into fists. The air around them crackled faintly. A grin broke across his face, wide, sharp, a little dangerous. His shoulders relaxed, but his spine stood straighter than ever. No more rationing. No more hesitation. "You mine now." A hum of power vibrated faintly through his chest, resonating with that ever-expanding core inside. Across the chamber, the creature stirred. It had watched the display, the soft bloom of light, the shattering cocoon, the seamless absorption. Now, for the first time, it leaned forward on its throne. Its eyes narrowed, and Leon saw it. Pressure, rising, growing. The creature's aura no longer idled like coiled amusement. It was sharp now, focused, lethal. The massive hammer that had rested lazily at its side was now gripped tight in both hands. It sat, still composed, but its knuckles strained. It saw him now, not as a toy, but as a threat. Leon's eyes didn't waver. He stepped forward once. Slow, measured. Their gazes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition. Then, flash. The throne was empty. The air split like thunder. It moved. But Leon had already moved too. His body blurred from his spot, twin daggers in hand, both wrapped in wind so dense it hummed. A keening whistle, just under hearing, like the breath of a storm waiting to land. A depth-level enhancement surged through his veins, mana, threading muscle, bone, reflex. He didn't dodge. He met it. Clash. A shock wave erupted from the collision. Stone cracked beneath their feet. Wind howled. And for the first time, Leon didn't fall back. He held, eyes silver, breath steady, letting the monster know. This time, he was ready. The impact faded. Silence followed, just for a heartbeat. Then, crumble. The stone beneath the creature's feet cracked in a spreading web. It slid backward. 1 step, 2, 3, 4, 5. It came to a halt, boots grinding against the floor, hammer lowered just slightly. Its obsidian arms trembled, barely, but unmistakably. And in its eyes, just for the briefest second, surprise. Leon didn't move, not even a flinch. The wind coiled tightly around his form, dissipating the backlash of the collision with surgical precision. He'd layered it just before contact, a spiraling shell of pressure, and it had absorbed every ounce of kinetic force. No recoil, no drag. He hadn't moved an inch. He stood exactly where he had struck, poised, breathing steady, unscathed. More than the monster, he was the one left surprised. Not because it staggered, but because it had endured. His breath caught. He'd met the charge head-on, wind-infused daggers spinning at high velocity, his body hardened by a depth tier enhancement, his timing flawless. And it was still standing. It wasn't flung. It wasn't torn in half. It wasn't even bleeding. It took it. Leon blinked, then snorted, then laughed. Once, twice, sharp and breathless. "Are you kidding me?" he muttered. His voice echoed in the chamber. The absurdity of it hit him full force. This is supposed to be a class awakening trial dungeon. This is a joke. This isn't a trial. It's a damn execution arena. He grinned through the hum of wind around his shoulders, his silver eyes gleaming. "That thing is a beast," he whispered. His stance lowered, focus sharpened, "and I'm going to crush it anyway." The clash resumed with thunder. Leon and the creature collided again and again, a storm of movement and momentum, each strike echoing like a siege bell through the throne chamber. Steel met stone. Wind met fire. The monster moved like molten iron, massive, brutal, and unervingly fast for its size. Its hammer carved arcs through the air that would crush anything in their path, each blow a small earthquake. But Leon met them all. He didn't land a single hit. Not at first. His daggers glanced off the obsidian skin. The monster dodged just enough, parried just enough. A twist of its wrist here, a shift of its stance there, and Leon's blades passed air or kissed armor. But every single time, Leon held his ground. The moment their weapons collided, the monster staggered. A foot slid, a shoulder tilted, a knee buckled slightly under pressure. Every impact favored Leon. The wind around him, layered, rippling, whispering, blunted incoming force and reflected it outward in bursts of sonic pressure. His feet didn't slide an inch. His aura didn't flicker. He was the eye of a hurricane built of mana and discipline. Still, no cuts, no blood. Leon grit his teeth as he danced away from a sweeping horizontal blow, the hammer shrieking as it tore a crater into the obsidian floor. Still no openings. The creature's strength was monstrous, but its control, terrifying. That thing's fighting me like it's done this before, like it studied me. He twisted sideways, avoiding a downward smash, then used the recoil to spring upward. His daggers sang through the air, right at the neck. Clang. The monster's elbow intercepted, redirecting the blade. He dropped, rolled, deflected another strike with crossed daggers. It's learning. Leon landed, back skidded, recentered himself. His eyes narrowed. Then, a whisper to the wind. He reached inward, deeper, and released more. The mana around him surged. The wind howled. A spiral wrapped around his limbs, ankles, forearms, forming bands of twisting air so tight they shimmered like glass blades in motion. Acceleration. He vanished from sight. The monster blinked. Then, crack. A blur of silver and wind struck its side. A clean cut, a shallow line across the hip, smoke rising where dagger met dense flesh. Leon zipped behind it, wind screaming in his wake, and struck again, slash to the calf. The monster snarled and turned, but too late. A third hit across the back, a fourth at the ribs. Each wound barely surface deep, but they were wounds, real ones, and they were accumulating. Now you're bleeding. Leon's smile didn't reach his eyes. He shot forward again, blades coated in vibrating wind. Crossed for a chest strike, but this time the monster didn't meet him. It jumped back, hard, sliding nearly 10 meters with a massive exhale, its breath now tinged with steam. Leon stopped mid-step. The air changed. So did the temperature. A hiss like coals being drowned echoed across the chamber. Then, fire. It bloomed around the creature like a divine flare, coating the obsidian skin in flickering red-orange heat. The hammer pulsed in its grip, veins of liquid magma running through the handle, and fire coiled along its head like a beast waking up. The throne behind it cracked under the heat. Flames spiraled to the ceiling. Leon narrowed his eyes. So that's what you were hiding. The creature raised the hammer again, this time not to swing, but to ignite. With a roar that shook the walls, it charged. The hammer came down like a meteor. Boom! But the strike didn't connect, because Leon had moved. He met fire with ice. His right dagger surged blue, a spike of crystalline cold bursting forth, colliding with the flame in a hiss of steam. His left dagger slashed upward. Wind accelerated, catching the monster under the ribs before it could react. The creature howled as frost crawled up its side, extinguishing some of the fire. Leon didn't stop. Wind whipped his body around in a spinning arc, daggers slashing, ice forming along their edges mid-swing, colliding with the monster's burning defense. Fire versus ice. Speed versus mass. A storm versus a volcano. And Leon was winning. His body blurred between strikes. Each movement was refined, controlled. He layered wind for speed, used ice to deflect heat, struck low to slow it, high to disorient. One cut became two. Two became five. The beast was bleeding now, steam and embers leaking from every gouge. Leon didn't smile. Not yet, because he knew what it meant. The creature was getting serious. And I'm still not done.